pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the Board of Commissioners regular meeting minutes from September 4th. Is there any corrections to that?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Jewett,
Flynn.
support by Commissioner Flynn. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. That brings us to first public comment. Sam, would you please read the rules?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provisions of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board may state his or her name and township or district. Providing a specific address is not recommended. Persons may address the board on matters or issues which are relevant and germane to county government as determined by the chair. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chair shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chair may, at his discretion, allow an additional opportunity or time to speak if determined germane and necessary to the discussion. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Order of Business. However, public comment may be received during the meeting when a specific agenda topic is scheduled for discussion by the board. Prior to the first public comment, the chair will indicate the topics on the agenda for which public comment will be accepted. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chair. The board shall not comment or respond to a person who is addressing the board. Silence or non-response from the board should not be interpreted as disinterest or disagreement by the board. Please be respectful and refrain from personal or political attacks.
Thank you, Sam. Would anyone like to address the board this morning? Now is your opportunity. Step right up there to the podium. Just go ahead and step up to the podium if you'd like to speak. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Paul Hunter, and I live in Traverse City. And the first thing I would like to say is thank you for getting behind the Grand Traverse Mental Health Crisis and Access Center at Munson Medical Center. I think that's wonderful. And I also appreciate the support you've given to the Community Cares Coalition, which is also another phenomenal organization. And as we all know, things have progressed dramatically in this past year. But what I would like to talk about is, I think something that is necessary is an umbrella organization that will bring all the players together. And the 2 that I wanted to mention to you is, first of all, Detroit Wayne Integrated Healthcare Network. And I know it's a mouthful, but it's the Detroit Health Department under the leadership of Eric Doe. And he's done a phenomenal job down there. So what he's done is he's brought all the players together, the Addicted Treatment Center, people helping with the homeless, and especially the work he's done for the mentally ill. And we all know that that's the thread that runs through all of these. He's opened a center in downtown Detroit, and they just opened a brand new one on the west side of Detroit. And he's done this, he started this in 2 years, and he made it happen. So the thing is, it's Detroit, so they're going to get a lot of attention to their problems, that's for sure. But the thing is, it came through the health department, and that, by coming through the health department, he was able to get federal funding, state funding, and then also other grants. So that's one. And the other one I'd appreciate if you would look at it would be People USA out of Poughkeepsie, New York. Now, that organization came in a little different manner. It came through their medical center, but it's a nonprofit that is essentially doing the same thing. They brought all the players together. They're taking care of the homeless, the addicted, and the mentally ill in their community. So that is what I wanted to talk about today. I just want to let you know, I think an umbrella organization would really be a great thing. And the two people that you could look and find out about, first of all, Eric Doa and Steve Missio. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Paul. Anyone else for public comment? Step right up. Good morning.
Scott, good morning. Scott Richards, Green Lake Township. I care about our law enforcement, and anybody else that cares for our law enforcement, they should watch the movie The Fall of Minneapolis. The Fall of Minneapolis. The other thing I'd like to talk about, the best thing I ever learned in my whole life is sugar time. Sugar time is when my grandparents and us four grandkids would get together and we'd read a devotional that went with God's holy word. And we'd get up after we prayed whatever we wanted to pray. We'd get up, we'd hug each other, kiss each other. That's the best way to start the day. Now my sugar time has grown into an hour and a half every morning. And it's allowed me, it's strengthened me to go out and knock on probably 10,000 doors in the last 3 years. It's allowed me to give out 70-some Gideon Bibles. It's allowed me to give out 300 Bible tracts while I'm getting signatures. Politics and Jesus go together. Jesus took on the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Roman government all at the same time, and he also took on the sin in my heart. And I love the Lord, and he loves me, and that's who gives me strength. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Good morning.
Good morning. Need my glasses. I'm Kathleen Howisen, and I'm with Peninsula Township, Traverse City, Michigan. I'm running for County Commission District 7, which is Peninsula 1 and 2, TC 8 and 9. I've been following the County Commission Board closely and tracking the issues. I've also been touring the county offices for the past few months to learn firsthand about each department within the county. I'm very impressed with the management, leadership, and the way each department is run. Some of the departments I toured included Veteran Affairs with Mr. Roof, learned about the services and care provided to our veterans through this office. Environmental Health Department with Brent Wheat, learned about the amount of work this department has on its plate and the future growth within this department and the services provided by this department. Emergency Management with Greg Bird, they're doing excellent work to keep our county safe, and Mr. Bird is an asset to our county. 9/11 Central Dispatch with Jason Torrey, they do such important work keeping our community safe. It's been a recent high turnover in this department, but Mr. Torrey is working diligently to fill the vacancies and getting new employees trained, which is a huge step. When he says it takes about 6 months for an employee to really know what their job is. Water Treatment Facility with Mark Huggard. He's a contractor with the Jacobs Group. He does excellent work with this group. Their staff is knowledgeable, and they just do excellent work for our county. Animal Control, I'm a volunteer for the Cherryland Humane Society, so I'm very aware of the inner workings of the Grand Traverse County Animal Control, and I see them in action regularly, and they are doing a great job for our county. Lastly, Road Commission with Mr. Tim Koffel in the absence of Dan Watkins, the director. Extremely impressed with this facility. The pride of workmanship and the care for the fleet of vehicles in this property is fantastic. We have numerous county departments that are doing great things for our community. The leadership, the pride of work, and the fiscal responsibility are outstanding. I plan to tour more county departments for firsthand knowledge and learn what it takes for each department to tick. I will be a good addition to the County Commission Board. As you can see, I will do my homework, and I will always be prepared for every meeting. I look forward to serving the taxpayers and the staff of Grand Traverse County. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Anybody else for public comment this morning? Seeing none, we'll move on the agenda. Next is approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any questions about the agenda or a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Jewett, support by Nelson to approve as presented. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have our agenda. That brings us to item 6, the consent calendar. Clerk Gedman, would you read the consent calendar, please?
Certainly. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will automatically be respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted to receive and file or approve is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. All information identified on the consent calendar can be viewed in its entirety on the county's website. Items received. Item A1, Department of Health and Human Services Pavilion Board, July 2024 meeting minutes. Item A2, the Grand Traverse Conservation District, August 2024 report. Item A3, the ARPA status report. Items for approval. Item B1, Commission on Aging, outside agency funding request for 2025. To approve funding for 2025 in the amount of $7,837 to the Area Agency on Aging of the Northwest Michigan and $25,000 to the Catholic Human Services for the Senior Companion Program, included in the COA 2025 budget. Item B2, the renewal of Grand Bay Promotions Public Relations Contract. To accept and approve the Grand Bay Promotions Media Relations proposal to provide public relations and marketing services to Grand Traverse County for an annual amount of $48,000. Item B3, ARPA funding reimbursement requests. Approve the ARPA reimbursement request presented as Exhibit C for respective funding agreements, reviewed by the Finance Director to be reported appropriately according to the U.S. Treasury final rule. Item B4, an expenditures report. Item B5, Commission on Aging and Parks and Recreation Commission appointments. To appoint Muriel Pevler to the Commission on Aging to fill a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2026, and appoint Jamie Callahan to the Parks and Recreation Commission to fill a 3-year term ending December 31, 2024, and extend the appointment for an additional 3-year term ending December 31, 2027.
All right, would any commissioners like anything removed from the consent calendar? Commissioner Flynn.
B2?
B2. Any, Commissioner Walter?
A3, the ARPA status report.
All right, Commissioner Andrews.
Items B1 and B5.
All right, anybody else? So we have the exceptions of item A3 by Commissioner Walter, B1, Commissioner Andrews, B2, Commissioner Flynn, and B5, Commissioner Andrews. Is there a motion to approve with these exceptions?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Andrews, supported by Flynn. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Roll call vote, please, Sam.
Seifert,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
McAllister,
Yes.
Jewett,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Henschel.
Yes, motion carries. That brings us to items removed from the consent calendar, so we'll take them in order, starting with item A3, the ARPA status report. Commissioner Walter?
Yeah, I was just hoping to, I know there's another agenda item here, which gives us more information on some more contracts and some more funds that are going out, but there's still several that have had very little status updates in a while, and we, according to the report anyway, there's no money that has gone out. So I wondered if administration could give us an update on some of those, given that it's nearing the end of 2024, and I believe this needs to be spent by, or you can remind us what the letter was that we sent, and because we put some dates in there, I believe, earlier this year to some of those groups requesting an update by a certain date.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Walters. Each and every one of these applicants think to date, have submitted to us an agreement that has been approved by this board. I think there may have been one most recently with Goodwill that changed their agreement, and they presented to this board previously. I did reach out to specifically East Bay Township. They have not spent any of their dollars that they were awarded for a sewer line replacement. Supervisor Friend assures me that she is working with her staff and Acme Township as well to make sure that that water sewer line is going to be in place and is going to spend those dollars first part of 2025. So we're comfortable with that. I've reached out to Rod Taylor, our consultant, through Manor Kesterson. He is also comfortable that they are well in place to be spending those dollars on that project. I'm trying to read other. So the Whitewater Township has recently taken action with their Parks and Rec. Commissioner Nelson, is it a Parks and Rec department or their?
It's their Parks and Rec department. Had conversation with them this week, and actually there's a complete turnover of the Board of Trustees happening in Whitewater Township in this election. They're running unopposed, but there will be a 100% turnover, including the supervisor, the clerk, the treasurer, and they're asking if there is any issue, and I was going to talk about this offline. They're asking if there's any issue if they reconvene on this right at the first of the year. In other words, take it up at the beginning. The Parks and Rec Board is recommending it to the Board of Trustees, but because of all this changeover, they're hoping that that doesn't delay their eligibility or anything. If it's January of 2025, that they approve some of this. They've done the engineering. They're kind of ready to go. But there's been, the current board has been reluctant to approve something for on a future board. So I was going to follow up with Jenny on that. I just had this meeting yesterday with them.
So we have been in contact with them. We recognize there's a risk there. There seems to be some difference of opinion as to whether or not they should move forward with the project, and if so, to what degree. Jenny is working with Supervisor Pop to best determine that. So we're aware of that situation. I had just sent Jenny a text about the Fife Lake Township Fire Barn. I believe that work has been done.
The work's been done. It came in under budget.
Yeah, so we just need to have an invoice from them to say, please pay us for the work that's been done. So we're comfortable with that. Slabtown neighborhood, we again have been in communication with them. I know that they're getting bids for signage for the area parks and things like that. It's a relatively small amount of money, but I know they had some early struggles with getting to a bank that would actually provide them an account that they could push money through back and forth through. So peer-to-peer, honestly, I will have to. I'm hoping that Jenny is here. Thank you, Jenny. Peer-to-peer mentoring program, I think they're up and running. We have just not had any invoices. And I'll turn it over to Jenny McKellar, who's managing the ARPA project.
Yeah, and in reference to the letter that Commissioner Walter mentioned, we did send out a letter giving them a deadline in which to get back to us. The ones that we hadn't received anything from, I did personally reach out to, and so I've been communicating back and forth with them to see what their status is. So the updates that you gave are accurate and are where we're at.
Thank God.
I don't have other specific ones off the top of my head, but we're in communication with all of them, yeah.
Yeah, all applicants have submitted an agreement.
Yes,
So
all agreements are
what
signed.
that does is it obligates our funds, and for those that don't recall, we have to have all funds obligated by December 31st of 2024. That will have been done by, once the agreements are approved by this board and the applying entity, so the funds will be obligated. The question is the risk of spending them. Each and every one of these has gone through some level of risk assessment through Manor Kesterson and our staff to say, can they actually get these things done? What we look at here is we're already 50+% expended. I have confidence that we will be expended fully. I forgot the Zuro project. That is done as well. It's completed. It's a matter of us getting an invoice either from the Road Commission or from Grant Township to make sure that we allocate or pay that invoice.
As of yesterday, that wasn't paved yet. It's just gravel still right now, but they're out there working.
We've got notice from Grant Township. Supervisor Moyer said that the project is done, so we'll have to follow up on that.
Or as of Monday, I guess it's Monday I drove by there, there's no pavement down yet. They may have done it yesterday, but there's no pavement down.
Are they working on different sections of it?
No, this is the section right just west of 633. That's the only section they have closed down.
I'm going to take your word for it.
They
So
could have
we
paved
will-
it yesterday,
we
but
will-
as
I
of
will
Monday,
go-
it wasn't.
I'll go drive down it, but yeah, we'll have to reconcile that because we have received information that the project was complete.
Okay.
So that the last letter that we gave to these different organizations and municipalities was that they needed to give us an update by a certain date and make sure that those funds were obligated. But then, so it's a possibility that, it's mid-September, we need to obligate all these funds by the end of the year. But if they're not spent, then what happens to those since they weren't otherwise obligated? Those are lost monies?
That's the concern, yes. So technically, the funds are obligated. Once this board signs the agreement, they're obligated. So now we're trusting these entities to make good on their promise that they're going to spend the money the way they said they would spend the money too. Acknowledging there's a certain level of risk there.
And in that letter, we asked them to give us a status update and what's their expectation of being able to spend the money in time.
And there are people asking. There are people saying, does the county look at this 43 different applicants and do they see any risk that some of these funds aren't going to be expended? And honestly, yeah, there is a concern. The biggest one, I just had this conversation with Supervisor Friend last week. They're confident that those funds will be spent in 2025.
Commissioner Nelson.
I was just, Mr. Alger's correct. I met with both Supervisors Acme and East Bay Township. That $2 million is a large one. We've been tracking that pretty closely. It's part of a $12+ million project, so there's different layers of funding. They're going through it. They've already expended a whole bunch of money on engineering and that type of thing. So they have the expenses. They're just kind of putting everything else together. I'm very, very confident that they're on track with that, and all the other people involved are also confident. I'm on the DPW board, so we're also aware. So
from Commissioner Walter's concern, I share it. We actually talked last week about, is there something that we should be sending to them now saying, you said you're going to do this, we have an agreement with you, you're going to sign something for the county that says we promise that this funding will be spent in accordance with the application that was submitted by the Board of Commissioners. Is there an interest on this to that degree from this board?
Isn't that what the letter already says to a degree? I mean, isn't that what the contract with them says, or?
I think the letter was going to the point of getting contracts in place, because back when we were doing it, there were some that hadn't even
Yeah, but isn't that what the
contracted.
contract says, though?
Not necessarily.
The Commissioner Andrews is correct. The letter that we sent said, you applied, we don't have anything from you, please give us an agreement that we can obligate these funds. They have done that. This question is, I don't know what good that it does, if any, quite frankly. Once December 31st, 2024 passes, those funds are obligated. So it would be a matter of us retracting our approval of some of these projects if we don't have trust that these projects are going to be completed.
Commissioner Andrews.
Thank you. As I recall, these are commitments that organizations made in 2022. It is now the end of 2024, and a lot of projects have not spent almost any money 2 years later. And we stand to lose potentially millions of dollars in ARPA dollars if it's not on that risk. And I would strongly support some process where we ask for assurance of spending and a timeline with somebody's signature backing it so that somebody's got skin in the game. And if we're not comfortable, or our administration isn't comfortable, I think we've got to think of a plan B where we reallocate that. And even if these come through, maybe we have an alternative backup for the projects who are planning but just didn't get it together and they come through fine. But in the meanwhile, there are other needs that are going to spend in the timeline that you, I'm sure, are aware of. And if we can reallocate to knowns without, hanging anyone out to dry, knowing that we have contingency resources, in my estimation from our budget discussions, just so that we mitigate that risk in the next 2 months, to Commissioner Walter's point.
Yeah, I think that's been kind of our topic of our discussion on this for several months now, is what are the contingent needs that in the last meeting in December we might choose whether to shift resources over to. So I don't expect you to give me a list right now, but there's something to think about.
Well, there are 8 projects that are 0% expended. Again, the information we have is it's going to be spent, but if there would be interest from some AA commissioner to move, that they direct staff to send some type of a confirmation letter to these entities and say, please tell us that you are going to spend this money as presented to the Board of Commissioners by December 31st, 2026. And if they cannot do that, that would give us a starting point with whom we can say, we're not backing this project any longer.
We need to do it by December 15th or something.
correct.
So
Well, I'll make that
Consider
motion,
that,
but I'm going to make
consider
it the
that,
end of October. Because if they're not going to be able to spend it, and to Commissioner Andrews' point, if they're not able to spend it, they've had 2 years, they need to get on their board, because by the 31st of December does not give us time to reallocate the money.
Right.
So it's going to be the end of October. The wheels of government move slowly.
It seems like a month is a lot of time to ask somebody if they are concerned about their ability to spend it and assure us that they don't have any concerns. And if they do, and my point is not necessarily to say you don't get any money. I think the question is, how can we bridge, projects that don't move forward? Obviously, they don't need money, but if a project happens to move forward, and it's not just the 8 that have 0%, there's a project with 2% spending, 1.546% spending, so far, 2 years later. There are lots of projects that are just not spending nearly the levels they said they would be.
Commissioner Nelson?
We have a motion without a second, but Commissioner, can you say your motion again, or I want to hear the detail in that motion?
So the motion would be something along the lines of, to Mr. Alger's point, that we're going to send a letter to the people who have not spent all their funds, and I don't think it's just the people that have spent 0. There are people in here that have got 98, 95, 89, 73, 61, 43. So if you take all those monies they're not spent, now we're talking millions of dollars here. So my motion would be to direct administrative staff to send a letter to all these folks that have not spent their 100% of allocated funds, to respond by the end of October to give us some kind of guarantee that they are, and if they're not, they understand that we may end up pulling some of those funds and reallocate to them.
It's
Support.
that some kind of guarantee, I think, is what I want to discuss. What do you mean by some kind of guarantee?
I'd be open for some suggestions on that, Commissioner Nelson. So you got some ideas?
I want to have a discussion about it.
Cool.
But, yeah.
Okay, so I've got a motion by Seifert to instruct staff to send a letter to all unspent recipients of the ARPA funding, requesting they respond
By October 30th.
by October
31st, excuse me, there's 30
by
days
October
in October.
31st, with giving the Board of Commissioners an assurance that they are going to expend the funds completely.
Support.
Okay. So motion by Seifert, support by Andrews. Sam, did you get that?
I believe so, but I'll probably have to review the video at some
All
point.
right. So,
Sorry, Sam.
All right.
so the motion is to instruct staff to send a letter to all unspent recipients of the ARPA funding, requesting them to provide the Board of Commissioners an assurance by October 31st that they will expend 100% of their funds. Discussion, Commissioner Walter.
I think Matt's on. Are you there, Matt?
We had a little bit of an audio issue, so
Okay.
if we could bring him up. Matt, can you tee up?
I'm interested in getting Matt's perspective on what kind of a assurance would be somehow binding, or if he could work on this with.
Yeah, that's why I use the word assurance. You
Yeah.
said guarantee, but assurance is what we're looking for. And that could just simply be a statement. It could be a letter, a signed letter from the supervisor of a township, for example, saying, this is what we're doing. We need to feel safe that this money is not going to just be going to evaporate from our community.
Matt,
Commissioner,
are you able to tee up so we can?
That's
try to fix
my
your audio?
concern is, is this binding? How do we do this? And it might not be that Matt can, on the fly, produce something here. I don't want to give
I'm
him
not. I didn't ask him to do it
No,
now.
I'm not saying that you did.
I don't think we need like a performance bond or anything from a township on whether they're going to spend money, but we need a
But
statement that's serious.
are we asking for, is there like a hook or a penalty, or that you're responsible if your $96,000 doesn't get spent, you have to pay us back? Or are we just asking for an update of where you're at, show us something that we can then at our first meeting in November, say, okay, I'm comfortable with that, and it looks to me like you have.
Well, depending what they provide, the Board of Commissioners can take action or not. Commissioner
Okay.
Morris is next.
I think that helps me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, Commissioner Morris.
Yeah, no, that was kind of my line of thinking, that they may have a plan in mind, but we haven't seen it, and we want to make sure that the money does stay here. And so I just want to, I'm really curious to know what their timeline is and what they're thinking. If I took out a loan for a project, they're going to be looking at my plans, and is this going to be a thing? So, right.
Commissioner Walter.
Yes, and to that point, I think these reports that we are getting on ARPA status, it would be helpful between now and then to put in here any kind of updates these organizations have shared with the county, because all we've really gotten is the same spreadsheet, and we've had some discussion, but I haven't seen anything else other than the contracts that have come through. I think that would help us to understand their picture as well, because I think, between now and the end of October, it would be helpful to see some communication or activity that has been communicated.
Absolutely do that.
Matt, are you able to hear us?
Yes, can you hear me, Nate?
Yep, thank you. Commissioner Walter has a question specific to the letter that we are going to be sending to applicants, directing them to give us a certification in some way, shape, or form that they are going to be spending the ARPA dollars by December 31st, 2026. Do you have any?
26.
Spent by 26, but obligated in 24. Is there any legal impediment to that you may see?
No.
Did I encapsulate that correctly?
That was fairly clear and succinct.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Commissioner Flynn.
I do just want to agree with my fellow commissioners on some few comments, but it has been 2 years, so these projects, there should be some kind of written, invoice or study or something that they have written down to show that they've been working on this project to be completed. So that's what I would like to see from these applicants.
Okay.
So if I may, we have received a lot of information. We are not quite 2 years into this. We've obligated and spent in excess of 50% of the funds. We have 2 more years to go. We created this report in discussion with this board about how much information do you want to see. We have invoices, we have reporting mechanisms that we have to complete administratively. Jenny and Mr. Bott do that, and they have quite a bit of detail that they could share. So the level of what you would like to see is up to this board. Okay, Commissioner.
Commissioner Andrews and then Nelson.
To my mind, I would like to see where an organization is a nonprofit, that their board of directors has supported their position that this is real spending, not just their staff. So, and to the extent it's a township, I think getting a resolution by the board would be helpful assurance for us. And I appreciate there's some level of trust and judgment or relationships here, but there's also a level of risk that we're going to lose dollars. So I think it's we've got time to ask the townships and the boards in their October meeting to put this on their agenda and provide us with that assurance. If they're not willing to do that, I'm not very comfortable in the likelihood of this getting spent. And the second piece of information I would like, in addition to a formal board action, is a spending to date. To the extent there is engineering that has been spent, there's been partial spending. Knowing that that has happened gives me more assurance that the rest is going to follow. And so I would like, when we take this up in November, that we have that information provided to increase our level of comfort that we're not taking the risk that these projects won't incur the full costs.
Commissioner Nelson?
I was just going to suggest that we don't put ourselves too much in a box on exactly what we're looking for. I think if we have the report from each of these individual groups, that we can then judge from that standpoint what we get from them on a case-by-case basis. And I don't want to assign my fellow commissioners to a job. I don't have the authority, but I would ask that each of us reach out to the ones in our district. You know, I've been following with mine, and I have those updates, and I think all of you guys have as well. But just reconnect with them so they know this is coming, and we want to help them get across this. Jenny's been great on this, so I appreciate your help, and I think coordinating with her so that there's not multiple people coming at them. So I just don't want this to get messy at the end and people hearing this going, whoa, we're going to lose the money. Let's kind of go forward with a positive attitude, and we just want to help you get across the line.
Okay. Any other Commissioner Flynn?
Just a quick question for some of these applicants that have been asking for reimbursement along the way. What is the timeline from the time they enter their reimbursement that we cut the check to them?
30 days?
Well, from the time it's approved by the board, Jenny does submit those reports. You have one in your packet today. It's
right.
Usually within 30 days. Sometimes we don't quite make that, but it's generally within 30 days.
Okay.
Okay. So we've got a motion by Seifert and support by Andrews to request a letter be sent to all recipients of ARPA funds that they provide Board of Commissioners with some assurance by October 31st that they will expend 100% of their allocated funds. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Next, we would entertain a motion to receive and file the ARPA status report.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Jewett, supported by Seifert. Discussion. Commissioner Walter, did you get all your questions answered?
I did, thank you.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Brings us to item B1 on the consent calendar, Commission on Aging outside agency funding request for 2025. Welcome.
Hi, good
Lana.
morning. Lana Payne, Director of Commission on Aging. And Commissioner Andrews, did you have specific questions?
I wanted to pull this off the consent calendar because it impressed me the level of transparency with which your request for spending public millage dollars is shown here. I think the fact that Catholic Human Services is receiving funding through our millage dollars to provide services in our community, exactly what those services are, and what their proposed spending for the year is a good model. And I wanted to bring it to the attention because I think we should be considering a similar process as we distribute other public funds, including, for example, opioids. This is a very succinct application. It looks like you use it year over year, and it provides you with the information you need to distribute those dollars, and for us as the board who are ultimately responsible for how millage dollars are spent, to have some assurance that that is going to a good purpose. So can you speak to the relationship with how you accept applications for outside funding sources or outside funding requests?
Sure, I'd love to. I'd love to talk about all of the great things that we're doing for seniors. So this is how this works. Early spring, we reach out to other agencies in the area that are providing services similar to what Catholic Human Services is doing, offer the ability for them to apply for a portion of the senior millage dollars on an annual basis. So some of the other funds that aren't listed here, this board agreed to $125,000 that senior millage is supporting for Meals on Wheels, in-home delivered meals and congregate meals. So there's a piece of the senior millage that's going to other organizations. Our advisory board also, not in this amount, they've asked us to spend this year about $15,000 on Senior Project Fresh coupons. That's a state coupon program for low-income seniors to receive fresh produce at the farmer markets. And so we did spend about $15,000. So we've got seniors in Grand Traverse County who received coupons, each of them $50 worth of fresh produce coupons. So we really value this ability to very carefully share our millage dollars, but it's very important to not say these are only for the Commission on Aging. These are for these important other programs. So, for instance, Catholic Human Services, they run both the Senior Companion Program and the Senior Grandparent Program. Our funding goes through that, the Senior Companion Program, because they've asked the Commission on Aging to be the referral agency, so all of those referrals for seniors in our area who want a senior companion, they call our office and we refer it to Catholic Human Services, so we work as a team. It benefits Commission on Aging clients for sure, but seniors don't have to be a Commission on Aging client to receive services from Catholic Human Services or Meals on Wheels or Senior Project Fresh. So it's a great way for us to reach other seniors who don't yet have our services but live in Grand Traverse County and are entitled to these. So each spring, I'm very interested in learning about other groups that might qualify for this. We believe our reporting structure is very helpful. It's fairly simple, but it is detailed, and it gives me really good information on how the monies were spent and to let me see if I feel that any increases requested for the following year are appropriate. This program in particular, the Catholic Human Services Program, they have really grown in the last year, and we see correspondence from them almost on a weekly basis of a new senior being matched with a volunteer senior. So I would like to put a little plug out there for any seniors who would like to volunteer for that program. They're always looking for volunteers, looking for seniors who are able to be companions for a fellow senior, or into that grandparent program too, to work with the children. So there's an generational opportunity there too. So Catholic Human Services, you can contact them, you can contact us, and we can put seniors in contact with them if they're interested in volunteering too. So just really important programs, and we are very happy to come alongside them.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Andrews, supported by Seifert.
Thank you for your
you,
partnership and your transparency and your the good work you're doing.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. B1
Thanks,
is
Lana.
approved. Thanks, Lena. Item B2, the renewal of Grand Bay Promotions Public Relations Contract. Commissioner Flynn.
Well, I know the team is here, and they had a presentation in the packet, so I thought that the public would love to see that presentation and hear what they're doing.
Okay. Welcome.
Absolutely.
If I could, I'm going to introduce Susan Olson, Charlie Olson, and Hannah Kumler. They are our team of media marketing group through Grand Bay Promotions, and over the last year we have met every other Tuesday, and what we do during that Tuesday meeting is we discuss strategy going forward for the next 2 weeks about things the county is doing, things that we would like to present and publish, market, etc. And I'm going to let Susan take it from there.
Great. Thank you so much. And I sure certainly appreciate having this opportunity to present to you our overall strategy and our partnership with Grand Traverse County. And with that, our highlights of our partnership, similar to what Nate suggested, coordinating, executing media with intention. And what I mean by that is, yes, folks with the media, and I have to say hello, Josh, Peter, Megan, thank you for always being on call for us when we pick up the phone and say, whether it's breaking news like the ransomware, or it's coffee with the county, or with John and visiting one of our valued parks. Sharing transparent, timely updates and stories. We manage and monitor social media while also creating fresh and engaging content, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Assistance with regularly scheduled events and breaking news, which I just mentioned. Saving staff hours by our dedicated follow-up and decades-long media connections, so that we're not putting Jenny or Lisa or Nate in a position, Chris, to have to follow up directly with the media, getting them to a story. Camp Graylick was an ideal situation like that last week. Some of our media successes: TV, print, digital. We produced 25 proactive media advisories. We produced 25 proactive media advisories, press releases, resulting in 145 plus segments, stories in traditional media outlets. Our work doesn't stay just to a region. You'll see an example here with MLive, which is Michigan's largest news network. So this was a great opportunity to share all the good work in our own region with the entire state and beyond. Another example, changes coming to the Kingsley DDA, was a terrific story that we worked with Josh on that for 2 or 3 visits there. Up North Live, we like to also tout all the cool things, and I mean really cool things going on. Winterfest with John, that was a great idea for a morning show segment. So there were 2 segments surrounding Winterfest driving actual participation. And then you'll also see a slide here with United We Smile with Allie Baxter and Up North Live as well. So those are just a very short list of some of the positive stories and highlights that we are sharing with the help of Nate and Jenny and the team. We continue to share the spotlight with print media. Peter, thank you. Here's an example of Peter's been an advocate in returning calls like Snap. We're so appreciative of that. But this is the support that we have, sharing those conversations throughout each and every week. This particular story that Peter accomplished was Camp Graylick Pavilions, and the beta conversation rolled into one. And I don't know how many times we talk over the course of a story cycle, but I, again, so appreciate you. Continued media spotlights, proactive updates. 10 days ago, 12 days ago, we learned that the bell tower was going to be in remission for repairs. So we thought, what a great idea to actually experience what goes on in the bell tower. It's a loved piece of property with great history and value. Again, thanks to Nate and John, again, for meeting us at 5:45 in the morning for such stories. Another continued spotlight with TV 9 and 10. This was an example of breaking news. The moment that, I think it was 7 in the morning, when Nate called and said, we have a situation that we really need to be proactive about. So this was regarding the ransomware cyber attack. Again, took as many days as necessary, any hour of the day. We're here on call to make sure that we're presenting the proper information, getting the facts straight for these folks from Nate. So again, thank you, Nate, for being with us early in the morning and late at night. We don't stop just with print, radio, digital, and TV, but radio success stories, our relationships with local radio stations, procure actual news segments every time that we send a release. We follow up with Michelle Perez and the other news directors. This has been really a highlight for getting the messages out about public service information necessary for folks to understand what's happening. Nate's been always on call for in-studio appearances, this particular one with Ron Jolly, followed by Vic McCarty and the others. And we make sure that we're following up with each and every particular group, including NPR. Coffee with the county. Came as a suggestion, I think, from Chair Henschel. What a great idea that has become. Monthly events sharing updates, transparency with both Nate and the Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Department. Public service announcements go out for those monthly events 3 times to secure proper coverage and getting the word out, and ultimately seeing our constituents visit with Nate and the others. The most recent event saw 30-plus folks in attendance, and I will encourage all of you to attend on the 23rd, this next Monday. In fact, just sent an additional schedule of events and PSA for that particular event, and we'll do so again early Monday morning. With that is a general overview. I want to turn it over to our social media team, and they can share some of our benchmarks that we're pretty proud to share. Charlie Olson, Hannah.
Thank you for having us here, and we really appreciate working with you all, but especially with Nate, Jenny, and the whole team. It's been an honor, and we really enjoy our team doing what we do. So, as Susan said, we obviously handle a lot of the media side of what we do, but we also handle the social media for Grand Traverse County, which is mainly just the Facebook page that we run. That means that we post weekly updates, pertinent information that the community would like to know about, but also more so than that is connecting with the community in a way that's different than the way that we just explained with the print or with TV, radio. We do this by creating engaging and fun content that looks different in different formats, but we came up with a series with the collaboration of Nate and the team and Hannah. I'll let her kind of explain what that looks like, the steps that we took to make that happen, and what we hope to do moving forward. So take it away.
All right, we're going to just jump right in. Hi, everyone, I'm Hannah. I actually joined on with the Grand Bay team a little later through the year, specifically to help with some of the social media and video creation. As Charlie mentioned, media has changed over the years, and we're keeping up with that. I'm sure for a lot of you, when you wake up and roll out of bed, you're looking at your phone maybe before turning on the news. Both are equally as important, but this series that we're going to dive into, called Straight from Nate, I think the biggest value in it is giving Nate a direct line of communication with his community. And I'm sure for many of you, you know that social media is so important, but it usually falls to the bottom of your to-do list. And for Nate, he's so busy that we stepped up in a way that, okay, how can we make this a way for you to talk directly to the people that you surround yourself with and share important updates while also sharing things that are fun and happening in the community, engaging maybe a different age bracket of community members who are rising in the ranks and wanting to understand what's going on in their neighborhood and what's going on in the county. So we created 15 videos, and we kind of broke them up into 2 segments. The first 8 is what I'm going to show you. It's all under this Straight from Nate umbrella. Much to Nate's chagrin, that's what we called it, because it is directly from him. So some of the examples, our first one, we started with Camp Graylick, the purchase, and then just calling for public input. So this is a way to directly reach out and say, hey, we want your input, we want your thoughts on this. And so that was a great video to sort of kick things off. Then we aim to do a video each week, and the topics kind of ran the gamut. But what I hope you take from this is that while it can be things like calling on the public's help or highlighting something that might be fun and happening in the county, it also can be a reactive tool for Nate to get a message out quickly. And so we saw that with media coverage, as Susan mentioned, with the ransomware, but also Nate was able to go on his own sort of platform and talk about it too, and provide a little bit of security and assurance to people in the community about what was going on when there were certainly a lot of questions that he was fielding. This is the Straight from Nate continued slide here. So we're talking about the first 8. We did things, a ransomware part 2, just following up on more questions that Nate received, highlighting coffee with the county, having one of the most watched videos at the time, which was just about the county's involvement in the Cherry Festival, and then talking a little bit about the county budget and the process behind that. As Cherry Festival came and went, we thought, okay, what can we do leading up to, we know last week, the purchase, or the ribbon cutting, of Camp Graylick. So we decided to team up with John, who was available and super communicative, so thank you for your time, John, in doing this Straight from Nate's Summer Park Series. So John and Nate highlighted all of the county parks, kind of like a brief overview, just for people to get excited about summer and utilizing these valuable parks that we have, but also diving a little bit deeper into 4 of the parks. So we went out to Power Island. We talked about some of the changes that have happened there or what you could expect this summer. And then Medali Park, which I thought was a really good one. It's kind of a park that maybe doesn't always get the recognition it deserves sometimes, but talking about how so many organizations came together to close the loop and make that a really valuable park in the county. And then all of this concluded, we did Civic Center, the Grand Traverse Natural Education Reserve, and then ended with the ribbon cutting at Camp Graylick, which so many of you were there, and it was a great event. So now we're looking forward and what we can cover as we're getting into fall and back to school and so many things happening. But it's been a great partnership, and it's been a way that Nate can easily, get in touch with us to provide any messages that he would like to, transparently with the public. So I'm going to bring Charlie back up just to talk a little bit about metrics.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Hannah. So just really quick, just some numbers so you guys can kind of have a rough idea of kind of the traction that we get on some of these. So that first series of videos that went through the Cherry Fest, the budget, some of the cyber attack stuff, aside from the Straight from Nate Park series, we got over 83,000 cumulative people that we reached. We had 341 interactions, so that's comments, likes, shares, and then you can see some of the comments that folks posted. Things from like, thanks for the info, Nate, great update, nice way to connect with the public, thank you, Nate. So just people really confirming that they liked what they were getting. This next series of metrics that you're going to see is just specifically for the Summer Park series. That was 7 videos when we actually put this presentation together. There's 8 videos now with the final Camp Graylick video that did come out, so these numbers will be a little bit higher. I think we roughly had about 16,000 people watch the Camp Graylick ribbon cutting video, so you're up there closer to 100,000 people that we reached with the Summer Park series. Again, some great comments. Thank you, Nate Algier, to your coworkers for your endless hours of successful work, maybe stressful too, Nate. And well done, we are indeed lucky. So just really nice things that people in the community can write, and always good to see. So this, again, just wraps up again with some more metrics. This puts all of the metrics together under one set of numbers. We reached 165,000. So again, probably closer to 180,000 after that last video came out. 704 comments, and then a fun one that we threw in there to end, which I think is always kind of surprising. We had 234 hours of minutes of watched and 25,000 minutes. So a lot of people watched, a lot of minutes consumed, and a great way for us to reach out to the community, in our opinion at least. I'll give it back to Susan to wrap up, and again, just thank you guys for your time, and we really appreciate working with you.
Thank you again to each and every one of you. We so appreciate the transparency and our opportunity to work hand in hand with you to share so many terrific stories where we all want to connect and be part of the new mission statement of making Grand Traverse County a grand place to live, work, and play. So thank you all, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Nelson.
Have you made any arrangements to worry about the paparazzi for Nate and the request for his autograph?
Well,
I'm worried
yes.
about the security.
It is on the street, and it is amazing the number of folks that just say, straight from Nate, that is awesome.
Look, he's turning red already.
It's something I did begrudgingly, I'll be honest with you. Hannah and Charlie, they did push into this, and it is fun, I will say that. However, it's more about the mission of the county, and we're constantly pushing the message about the good work we do, the services we provide, and it's an interesting way to do it. We had a most recent one that's not yet out yet with the bells and the bell tower here for the circuit court. It's a good way to get that information out, highlight some of the things that we do that nobody really sees.
See what happens? I'm right in the middle of my comment, and Nate comes right in. He's such a microphone guy. The other thing I did want to say, seriously, is I've been fortunate enough to be in organizations that have used Grand Bay Promotions and on organizations that have brought Grand Bay Promotions in. And I think we can all see the difference at Grand Traverse County that they've added a level of excitement and engagement. So I endorse this contract, and I just want to thank them for bringing this level. Even Nate's newfound stardom has been
Is that a
awesome,
motion?
That's a motion. I don't want to,
Okay.
Commissioner Flynn, you brought this back. I don't want to take away from.
I just have a couple questions.
Yeah.
All right, so
I'm
motion
gonna
by
leave it up to
Nelson,
her if she wants
support
to
by
make a motion,
Jewett to approve as presented. Commissioner Flynn.
I just wanted, I love seeing the data of how many, the reach and the interactions, but I was just wondering if there's any numbers of growth since we signed a promotion contract with you.
Yes, in fact, the Facebook page, I'll defer to you on the growth, where we started and where we are now.
I'd have to get you 100% exact metrics, but we have grown it. I think we started roughly at about 3,000 followers on Facebook, and I think we're maybe up 600 or 700 from there. I'd have to look just to make sure I give you accurate numbers, but it has grown.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then second, this is all great news and all good news, and I was just wondering what barriers or challenges you've also faced in the last year.
Boy, that's a great question. I really appreciate that. Certainly, there have been no barriers working with the county staff. I mean, it just resonates, such positive energy, and it's notable on the street when folks in other organizations that we all work with and friends and family noticing the fact that Grand Traverse County is doing amazing things. So I really don't see barriers that we've encountered.
I can add to that if I may, Susan. One issue that we see is, well, two things. One is content. We just struggle sometimes to find content. We can always talk about the services we provide. We have the typical posting of advertisements regarding vaccination clinics or health department needs that they have or are offering. But content is an issue. And secondly is when you call somebody and when the people over in the corner are reaching out to you because they've just gotten something from Grand Bay Promotions, there needs to be somebody to answer the phone. And there needs to be somebody willing to get on camera. And there needs to be somebody that has knowledge about something that is being inquired about. They need to step up and speak. And some of our staff just are not interested in speaking to the media. And I'm receptive to that. So what Grand Bay Promotions has done is they've offered that middle line where they can actually have that conversation in the event that we're either not available or not really interested in doing it. They can provide that gap service.
Commissioner Andrews.
Thank you. It seems that Grand Bay Promotions has worked hard to improve the county's image and knowledge in our community about some of the things our county is doing. I do have concern that we are not developing these relationships with the media in-house and that we're not able to provide some of the spotlights on all of this projects we're doing. We just heard about some really good work that the Commission on Aging is doing and the needs that they have. And my perspective is that $50,000 a year is a lot of money consistently year over year now to be spending on an outside consultant to provide these resources. I acknowledge the benefits we have received to bridge our starting point where we have nobody on staff who understands and has the relationships that Grand Bay obviously has. But as we keep doing this year over year, we're not developing those relationships in-house, and we're not developing expertise in-house, and we're not necessarily spotlighting all of the opportunities we have in-house because we're not building internal relationships. I would like to see us consider getting an in-house person whose job, organizations much smaller, with far fewer than almost 600 employees, have in-house social media expertise. And we are now on a track where we're just year over year paying for outside consultants. And I think we need to be thinking about value to bring that in-house. I don't think today is the day. We clearly have a contract in front of us. This is working well. But I think going forward, we need to be thinking about if an organization of our size and doing as much as we're doing and growing as much as we're growing shouldn't have in-house expertise in social media and press relationships directly.
I would respectfully disagree. I think our relationships with the press have become better because of this outside contract, because the warm handoffs that Grand Bay Promotions is able to give to our staff that we otherwise would have no contact with. And yeah, there might come a time when it makes sense to have an outside or an inside media person, but when you can get that service provided by the private sector, and if that service becomes subpar, we can end the contract at any time and find somebody else. I think it's a pretty good arrangement right now. That's my thoughts. So,
If I may.
Commissioner Seifert.
I think I like what they've done here. I think it's a very comprehensive approach. From us, the people sitting up here, that we all need to be involved, probably more than we are. But I'm happy with where they're at, and we're not getting anybody in-house to even do their level of success for $48,000 a year. That's just not going to happen. As we move forward, I think a multi-pronged approach, but I'm very happy with what they've done and look forward to the future. And I'm just curious, can I use straight for Nate as a reference quote? Just like, I got straight from Nate, that's all you need.
We actually think we're going to trademark it.
Fantastic.
Okay,
Thank you
Commissioner
very much.
Walter.
I'm hoping to get an autograph myself.
Well, I think the video series has been really good. I do enjoy them when they come out, and I always learn something new about what's going on. So I do appreciate that, and I often share them out and they are engaging, and I think it's good. It would be good now that I think we've figured out the process, it feels like, to show some other aspects of the county. As Commissioner Andrews pointed out, there's a lot of other, and we all love our parks, but there's a lot going on in the county outside of the parks. So would love to highlight even, I know you said that a lot of other employees are reluctant to be a face of the county, but it is nice to show different perspectives and follow people along because I'm learning more about the county every day, and I'm sure the public would love to learn more about the county too. The other thing, I'm interested to know what the social media approval process is like with the county, because there have been some things that have not been correct, and I've talked to the county about it, and things have been pulled or adjusted, and I just wonder what that process is like with staff and with Grand Bay Promotions.
We try our very hardest, certainly, to make sure that we have all facts and all inclusive. And I know there was one, I think, that we went back and forth a bit about. So I appreciate anything that you see that comes back to Nate, Charlie, Hannah, myself. So typically it is decided upon in our Tuesday meetings. And at that point, the fact-finding and everything is discussed there. I do know that we missed, and I'm trying to remember which one it was, but I appreciate that and really rely on Jenny and Nate as we discuss what those facts are.
Well, from our perspective, there are 3 or 4 people in the county that can actually post on our Facebook page. We've made Charlie an administrator, myself, Jenny. So at any given time, if there's a need to push something out, we either do it or I will reach out to Charlie and say, can you please push this information out? Oftentimes it's easier just for us to do it, but we do try to respect that connection so that they can remain connected to the Facebook page. Social media is sometimes challenging, so we want to have a communication specialist to the degree possible, communicate, craft those messages and push them out.
And what's the approval process like after something is created before it goes out to the public? Is there one? Or
Typically, we review the post prior to it going out in terms of content.
And I want to make certain, I'd love to make sure that you all have our contact information so that as you're out and about, maybe it's Sunday afternoon, maybe it's 5 o'clock on Monday, anytime, please just shoot us a text and say, this would make for a really cool post. We would love more eyes. You you guys are the eyes and ears and on the beat and really know of all the amazing things going on. So more content, please share with us. And we want to be part of the commissioner team equally to staff, for sure.
I think that's a great point. I think if any commissioner ever wants to have something go out or sees something and say, hey, we're doing this thing in my district, or can we please highlight this, we would welcome those suggestions.
Don't be shy. I'm not.
Yes, please. Don't be shy is right, exactly. And also brought forward earlier this morning, Chairman Henschel had a request of the video that we were able to take of the ribbon cutting that we took ourselves outside of Josh and Megan and the others. Anytime that you see video in there that is straight from Nate kinds of video and you would like raw video to share for what purposes on your social and the like, we're happy to do that.
Commissioner Flynn, do you have something else?
Well, do you want to take this moment also to let the public know where coffee with the county on Monday is?
Absolutely. Nate, would you like to invite everybody to Coffee with the County?
Certainly. We are going to be in Acme Township at the Acme Township Hall starting at 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday.
And I do believe Commissioner Nelson will be there as well.
Will be.
Thank you.
With my Diet Coke.
Great. And thank you all. And I know all of you have attended different Coffee with the County's event calendar, and it really has been a nice way. And again, thanks for media for always sharing that news to get it on the radar and the calendars too.
Okay. Let's have a roll call vote on the motion. Sam?
Nelson?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
McAllister?
Yes.
Jewett?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Seifert?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all very, very much. And we're off and running to the next Grand Traverse County news story.
Okay, great. All right, let's take up item B5. This is the Commission on Aging and Parks and Recreation Commission appointments. Commissioner Andrews, do you have a question on that?
Yeah, I'm curious on the recommendation on the Parks Board, if those who voted in favor of it can explain the rationale. It looked like there were a lot of good applicants for that. I'm surprised that in the recommended appointee, Mr. Callahan, is already going to be presumably our treasurer, and there was an opportunity at the time to bring in more voices into this board, and I'm just curious as to the rationale for Mr. Callahan over, I think it was 4 other women that applied for that position.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yeah, I served on that board with Commissioners Walter and Jewett. The reason that, my feeling, the reason that Jamie Callahan was picked is that he's had about a 2-year history of volunteering with the Parks and Rec Board. He served on both the Business Development Committee and their Strategic Planning Committee, if I have those 2 correct. And as a volunteer, he's been very helpful, very engaged. He's been at, I'm new on this board myself, but he's already been at a couple events that we've had. He has shown a several-year commitment, which I thought was a very good reason to put this person on the board. We did have several good applicants, and other ones that could have been very good appointees, but we had a proven and demonstrated leadership with Mr. Callahan. And for the record, we did check with legal counsel to see if there was any issue that if he became the treasurer, that there was a conflict there, and it was we were informed that there was no issue with that, no legality issue. If anyone else has any comments from the
Commissioner Jewett?
Yeah, I would concur with what Commissioner Nelson just said. I mean, when Jamie had showed that he had just shy of 2 years of volunteering there and everything, I think that's a candidate that already knows some of the workings of the Parks and Rec and everything. We did have several good candidates. I think there was 3 others, if I remember right. And it's one of them things, and I made the comment in our ad hoc there that I've sat on a lot of ad hocs, and this is one that every candidate would have been a good candidate for both boards. But, the job is to talk about it and have our discussion and come up with a recommendation, and that's exactly what we did.
I did advocate to bring in a new voice to the board just because Jamie has had a lot of other experiences and will be representing the county in other ways, and wanted to bring some other people and their experiences to the board. The caveat we did discuss in the meeting too is that there is another opening coming up very soon, I believe. Yes.
Well, it says that this is both to fill an opening and extend it for 3 years, so I'm just curious
Yeah,
about that.
so let me finish. There is
there's-
another
there's-
opening coming up soon,
In
which I
December,
believe
we'll be
starts.
interviewing again for
Yeah, which I believe
a board
starts
member
in
that's-
January. Another term outside of this one.
Outside
Yeah.
of the one that is going to be
Yeah.
extended through 26.
Right.
Thank you for that.
So,
clarification.
yeah, there is an opportunity for somebody else to step up and serve as well, but I am in favor of bringing in different voices to the table.
Commissioner Jewett.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the ad hoc committee's recommendations to appoint Mariel Peevler to the Commission on Aging for a term ending December 31st, 2026, and to appoint Jamie Callahan to the Parks and Rec Commission to fill a 3-year term ending December 31, 2024, and extend the appointment for an additional 3-year term ending December 31, 2027.
Support?
Okay, motion by Jewett, support by Nelson.
I move to
Discussion.
divide the question to separate the Commission on Aging appointment from the Parks and Rec appointment.
Okay, so we have a motion to divide the question. This would, if successful, would create this motion into two separate. So is there support for that?
Support.
Okay, so we have a motion by Andrews and support by Flynn to divide the question. Let's have a roll call vote on dividing the question.
Morris?
No.
McAllister?
No.
Jewett?
No.
Flynn?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Seifert?
No.
Nelson?
No.
Henschel?
No. Motion fails. We're back to the main motion, which is to approve as presented. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Walter.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Commission on Aging for a minute. We had 2 very amazing applicants, and it was very hard to choose one because we happily would welcome both to join the board. Luckily, there, I believe, is another opening coming up on Commission on Aging as well, starting early next year. So hopeful that this other person will, Ricky Fox, I believe, or others will be interested to step up and serve in that capacity as well. So just amazing people. It was really hard. I think we all agreed it was probably the hardest choice we've made on an ad hoc because they both have a lot to offer.
Commissioner Nelson.
I was just going to state that it was unanimous on the Commission on Aging, and as stated, there were 2 excellent candidates.
Well, I want to thank the committee for their work. I know it's time-consuming and very challenging to go through the number of applicants we get. Parks is one that is very challenging because there's a lot of passion for our local parks, and that's great. And I remember I've sat on that several times on that ad hoc, and Jamie Callahan has applied several times and been passed over several times. So the fact that he still volunteered, he's still stuck with it. And the current chair, Rod Kivel, same thing. You know, he missed a cycle, but he still stayed involved, still volunteered, and now we appointed him back on, and he's the chair now. So I just great appreciation for the committee. I'm likely to recommend this same committee at the end of this year to take up that open seat, and in both cases, the Commission on Aging and Parks. So just want to say thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to add, as Commissioner Walter said, we had great candidates for both, and this was really hard to decide, actually, so I would strongly encourage when we do have some openings here specifically to these boards that these candidates reapply because, like I said, our job is to go there and have our discussion and try to make a recommendation, but it was truly the hardest recommendation I've had to come up with, so.
All right, Commissioner Andrews?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to note that there are, as you've both mentioned, there are a lot of openings coming up very soon, and a lot of these boards don't necessarily always get the number of applicants. We've had to convene boards in the past because we didn't have enough applicants, and I'm going to look at Grand Bay Promotions. A lot of these boards are unknown what good work they're doing, and it's a great opportunity to highlight what the boards are doing and help us recruit candidates, because by the end of this year, we're going to have, I want to say, 10 or more openings on different boards across the many boards that we make appointments to.
Yep. Okay. Sam, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly.
Scott, did you have your hand up?
Nope.
Psych.
McAllister?
Yes.
Jewett?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Seifert?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you for that. We're going to take a brief recess, and we'll come back to take up item 10A, the Forever Camp Greilich Endowment. Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners regular meeting on Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. We are back from a recess, and we are in our agenda item 10A. This is the Forever Camp Grolic Endowment. Welcome. Nate, you want to kick us off?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. With us today is Mr. Bangenbeer and Mr. Chown, and they're coming back to talk to you about the Forever Grolic Endowment. And this board had heard this previously and decided to wait until later in the year, so here we are. So I'm going to turn over to Dave.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Nate, and thank you to the commissioners. I will say just congratulations again to this commission and to Grand Traverse County for the purchase of the former Camp Grolic property. I was not a Boy Scout here in the Traverse City area growing up, but I had the opportunity to go out there a few weeks ago, and it is truly a special piece of property that I think will serve the people, the families, and the youth of our region for many, many years to come. I'm Dave Bangenbeer. I'm the president and CEO of the Grand Traverse Regional Community Foundation. I'm here with Glenn Chown, the executive director of the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy, and we're here this morning to renew our request for an appropriation from the county to the Forever Camp Grolic Endowment, which is stewarded by the Grand Traverse Regional Community Foundation. The fund, which presently has about $250,000 in principal, new gifts, and commitments in it, will provide financial support to the county in perpetuity for the operations and maintenance of the park. The Forever Camp Grolic Endowment is just one of multiple funds the foundation stewards to support operation and maintenance at parks and natural areas throughout the region. These funds help ensure that these properties continue to be safe, accessible, and well-maintained for use by the public, families, and our young people, and for nonprofits and municipal governments that have these operating endowments. It ensures a reliable source of revenue to support their operations each year and obviates the needs for annual fundraising or dipping into general funds to pay for operations and maintenance. As this commission knows, many of our young people today are experiencing significant mental health challenges. Providing outdoor experiences at the new county park, which was highlighted by the Foundation's Youth Wellness Initiative, will help ameliorate the stress and anxiety our young people are experiencing. Our request to the county is first to commit a $250,000 appropriation today to the Forever Camp Grolic Fund to, in essence, match the amount we have already raised, and second, to enter into an agreement with the foundation to match up to another $250,000 that the foundation and the Conservancy intends to raise from private donors. And I will just stop and just say, make this point. I think sometimes government, nonprofits, and the business sectors don't think about opportunities to collaborate like this. And we see this as a way of leveraging not just public dollars to support our county parks, but ways of actually leveraging private donations. So we see it as a real excellent example of a public-private partnership. So under this arrangement for the match, the county would match $1 for every $2 we raise, up to $250,000. The foundation staff would work with the county administrators to nail down the details of the appropriation and the match, including ongoing documentation and reporting requirements in the next couple weeks. The county's financial commitment to the Forever Camp Grolic Endowment would provide a very timely catalyst, or as my partner Glenn says, a booster rocket to our fundraising efforts, which, if successful, would raise $1.5 million and, once complete, would grant to the county $60,000, which would recur annually forever and would grow as the value of the fund appreciates. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Glenn to make a few more
Dave, can I
comments.
clarify one point? The match, is there a time frame on that match that you're recommending?
That would be up to, in the discussions between the administration of the county and the foundation about what you're comfortable with and what we think is appropriate. But as we've been saying, in fundraising, then timing is everything. And we see there's a real opportunity right now where there's a lot of excitement among local property owners and donors committed to preserving natural areas and parks to raise this kind of money. And we see the contribution from the county and the match as a real catalyst for our efforts to raise money from private donors.
Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you. It's great to be here. One point of clarification. So what Dave's talking about is $250 now to match existing funds. The second $250 would be a challenge grant, 1 to 2. So every county dollar would generate at least 2 private contributions to this Forever Camp Great Lick endowment. And based on some feedback we received from conversations with commissioners, I think the other challenge for the second 250 is one commissioner remarked it would be great to see a plan to how the county intends to partner with nonprofits, with school districts, et cetera, to bring more youth to the camp. And I was just speaking to John Chase. In fact, he met with the YMCA just yesterday. They are very interested in summer camps. The Conservation District is very interested as well. Seeds has interest in doing programs out there. Heck, the Conservancy, we have naturalists on staff. We would be interested in leading field trips. I think the opportunities are endless. And I know John, as your Parks and Rec Director, and certainly your Parks and Rec Commission, is engaging youth out on that property so that it continues the 94-year tradition of not only providing outdoor recreation, but providing educational opportunities for our youth. I think the opportunities are large, and you're going to be seeing a lot in the future. And I know John's going to be reporting on that, and that was important in terms of the second 250. The other thing I wanted to mention, one of the things that the Parks and Rec Commission has done recently that will also help leverage more private contributions, particularly from the people around the lakes, is the Parks and Rec Commission passed a policy after a presentation from the Conservancy about the threat of invasive species being transported by boats that come in from other areas and other water bodies. Species like Eurasian milfoil, which can really choke out a lake. And so the county Parks and Rec Commission passed a resolution that it is their goal that there will be no outside boats. And in response to that, the Conservancy is now working with staff to update the conservation easement to make some amendments so that, for example, there could be a kayak, a kiosk where people coming to enjoy the camp and the property could literally rent a kayak or a canoe, a non-motorized boat that always stays on the property. So it would never be a threat to bring invasive species into the lake. So we are making, our staff is working with your staff to look at the conservation easement language to make sure that that flexibility is there for the storage of those boats. And while we're at it, we're also looking at making sure that there's universal accessibility down to the lake, that the dockage is sufficient to support these types of activities, both suggestions from commissioners, but which were excellent. And also making sure that the buffer zone, there's an existing 100-foot buffer zone to protect the lakes because there's steep slopes going down to the water, that we're looking at doubling that from 100 to 200 feet, but also allowing for better sanitary facilities, because to replace the old pit toilet that the scouts put in there, to have the proper bathroom facilities that are sanitary and not putting nutrients into the lake. So all of those changes are underway. We've postponed any conversations about square footage because the current easement allows a doubling of square footage. And I think I got a great suggestion from the commissioners that let's postpone that conversation until John and the Parks and Rec Commission have a full long-range plan for the use of the property. And then we can have that conversation. So these changes and these opportunities, again, this is the county working together with the Conservancy, with the Community Foundation to leverage more resources. I'm excited about those opportunities. And I think we nail this Forever Camp Graylick endowment. And I see $1.5 million as a minimum. I see the private donors making contributions to that fund once we get this thing rolling long into the future. I know there's a lot of Scout alums that want to make some significant gifts. So this is really going to unleash some fantastic fundraising, and it's going to allow this property not only to be maintained in terms of the facilities, but to be stewarded well and stewarded in partnership with groups like the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy, as we do on Maple Bay. And of course, the district's been a great partner at the Nature Education Reserve and other places. So we've even talked about, we get this all squared away, a robust endowment for Camp Graylick. Why don't we look at doing a similar model for Power Island? We know a lot of folks that would be really interested in contributing to an endowment for the benefit of Power Island. So let's start here, and then let's look ahead to the future on other opportunities to partner well. So we're excited about this, and we appreciate the vision of this County Board of Commissioners. It's an amazing asset, and let's take care of it together for the long haul.
Commissioner Jewett.
I have a couple questions for both part of our team and you guys, but to our administrator, maybe finance director, if we were to commit to this, where would this initial $250 come from, and possibly the additional $250 matching type monies?
Do we have local ARPA match dollars available still?
We have spent $3 million of our ARPA dollars to purchase the property. Dean and I had a conversation about this previously when we had this conversation in the board chambers. We had an idea. Where was that?
Well, the two places that I would recommend you consider if you do this would be, we could budget additional tax revenue or interest earnings in our general fund. Those two areas, because of our conservative budgeting, we would have the ability to increase those revenues.
Okay. And then, yeah, I guess we could look at marijuana funds too, but.
That's correct also.
Okay. So I just want to make sure the money's there, but I do want to say thanks, Dave, and thanks, Glenn, for coming here. After the last meeting, I did have an opportunity to talk to these two and share some of my concerns and also just get more input from them, and it was very valuable. And it was the additional information that I needed for myself, since I've talked to constituents, I've talked to people in Parks and Rec, and the opportunity to talk to these guys and everything. And if we would have voted last time presented, I would be opposed to this just because we didn't have the details and everything. So I want to thank them for taking time out of their day to have a moment for us to converse on this and everything. But knowing that the funds could be there, I think it's a pretty well laid out plan. I think it aligns with what this commission has said is we want to invest in our parks. We want to make it good for the public and everything like that. And I seen their commitment, especially to Camp Grelick here and stuff. With that being said, I'd make a motion that we match the initial $250,000, and then their plan with the 1 to 2 grant match like that. I would make a motion, or I would like to include that in that motion to go through with that. One thing I will point out, though, is the goal is $1.5 million. By doing this, that's only going to get us matching up to 1.25. You know, so hopefully some other people will step up to the plate. But I do feel that this would show the public that we at the county are committed to this project specifically. But I think based on conversations, I think the public's starting to see that we are committed to our parks and everything, and we're going to make them the best in the region. So
I'll support your motion. So we have a motion by Jewett, support by Henschel.
We have an attorney has a, counsel has her hand
Go,
up.
thank you. Mr. Nordford, go ahead.
I wanted to suggest an addition to the motion. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be to authorize the county administrator to negotiate a funding agreement for services as approved as to form by legal counsel.
I'm fine with that.
Consider that the motion.
What does a funding agreement for services mean?
Well, we can't donate money, so we can structure this in such a way that we have a contract with the endowment, and they will use that as the funding mechanism for services to go back to the county that the county could otherwise provide.
What would those services be?
My understanding, we will just need to identify the operational and maintenance support that the endowment intends to fund.
And do we have that? I mean, my understanding is that the reason we didn't take action in July on this item was because we had just acquired the property. There was no plan presented. So do we have any sense of what sorts of services might fit within the funding agreement for services that are being contemplated?
Yes. So what the endowment is going to be used for is the maintenance of Camp Grelick, the property of Camp Grelick. So that is something that the county could normally otherwise do with county funding. So that's what the essence of the agreement will say.
In full transparency, while the camp was run by the Boy Scouts, my uncle was the ranger, so I'm quite familiar with a lot of maintenance is needed. Snow plowing, roofs, plumbing, electrical stuff just needs maintenance.
Mr. Chase,
Nelson?
I believe, was, I'll hold my comment
I didn't know
so
if
that Mr. Chase can
Do you have
speak.
something to add, Mr. Chase? I saw you approach.
Thank you, John Chase, Parks Director. Yes, you're correct. There's a lot of operational expenses that would need to be covered throughout the park operations. You mentioned a couple of them. I mean, grass doesn't mow itself, for example, so in the places where we need to mow that, sealing and striping of parking lots, maintaining parking lots, signage throughout the property. So there's initial expenses as well as ongoing expenses. And I'd be happy to go through a more detailed review of that if you'd like. And this is not on?
I mean, I'm interested to know, do you think we need a caretaker? Do you think what sort of, we've heard nothing about future use of the park.
Yeah.
I appreciate that there obviously will be maintenance needs, but if we're going to enter into a contract, I think it's fair for us to have, and the public to have some sense of what scope of services are you anticipating? I'm sure they exceed whatever the endowment would fund, but it seems like we're trying to develop a agreement before we have any real plan for the park.
Well, I don't think it's fair to say there's no plan or we haven't received anything. We've had a lot of discussions, and the public's been invited for public input. What we haven't seen is the final plan. And you're right, we haven't seen that.
We haven't seen a draft plan either.
But we know there's going to be expenses. There's plumbing. We have winter. You have to either winterize it or keep it warm. There is things to do, and we know it's going to be more than what the endowment probably is going to provide. But it's a good start.
Bringing up.
Okay, Commissioner Nelson, did you want to
Well, Mr. Chase has presented at our public hearing sessions. He has a very good presentation that he's pulling up right now that though not a final plan, it is a very good plan that lays out some of the plans and what we're looking at doing at Camp Gray Lake. So I don't know if we want to show that, but the comment I want to make before we go there is that what I like about this plan and proposal, and it's a good thing that it got delayed because I think it became a better plan moving forward, is this shows the community who has been highly invested, both personal individuals and the who's who of public entities in this community have all been engaged in this process. And this shows that the county is behind this too. We're also going to put some money in toward this because it's our park. It belongs to the taxpayers, but the county owns this park. We are investing in it, and we're jump-starting a challenge to get more people engaged. So the plan that fleshed out of these different meetings, I think, is an excellent plan. But so, Mr. Chase, I turn it back over to you.
I would like to just make a comment that while this is something that John has put together, we've been involved in the creation of what you're about to see. Each and every one of us at this dais has, at least in some way, shape, or form, seen this or have had input towards it. This is not the plan comes from the Parks and Recs Commission. So I just, word of caution that what you see here, this is
good clarification.
What we look to is like, this is where staff envisions us going here. It has yet to be approved by the Parks and Rec Commission. Thank you.
We have a full document in place, and in fact, even going to the not approved piece. So the picture that you see here is just an artist rendering. It's using the same model of the signs that we're preparing to put in place for other park properties. So we haven't picked a name yet. We haven't gone that far. So we'll just kind of take that one as the working title at this particular time. So we thought we'd go through to answer some of your questions. Give you a little property overview, give you some familiarity with the property just as a refresher. Talk a little bit about the site analysis, and then some of those plans that we are putting in place in terms of uses for the park, as well as a phased introduction plan for those individual uses. So just by way of reminder for everybody, so this is in the Forest Lakes area, and the property is 4,310 feet of frontage that borders Rennie Lake, Spider Lake, and Bass Lake. And so it's 196 acres of the total 500-acre property that was formerly Camp Greilich. And there's a lot of amenities that are on property, so a list of the amenities kind of detailed here, and we'll go through some of those amenities and how we think we'd roll those out. So first, as we've talked before, no good plan is going to be put in place for use of a park without having the opportunity for the public to be able to give input on that plan. And we've had a couple of public input sessions, one at the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy, so thank you for the opportunity to host there. And then our most recent one was at Camp Greilich property. And we had great input from folks through that process, as well as through numerous emails and other conversations. And the four pieces that I've listed here: be a good neighbor, protect the lakes, protect the land, and respect the environment, were the things that came back for the most part, were loud and clear. And there were specific aspects in there, as Mr. Chown had mentioned earlier. One of the things that our Parks Commission has voted on was to not allow private watercraft on the property, to be able to protect the lake, and then protect the lake from invasive species. Commissioner Nelson, you had a question?
No, somebody's waving outside. I apologize.
No worries. I just want to say,
Sure.
there's a $100,000 pledge from Casey and Dana Howell to allow the county to purchase a fleet of non-motorized watercraft and also to install the kiosk and whatnot. So that's on the table as well.
Yeah. Thank you. As Mr. Chown has also mentioned, there's a conservation easement on the property, and that limits things we can do on the property and also gives us some flexibility with the property. And I've listed just a couple of things here. So as has mentioned, it limits the development. So we currently have 86,000 square feet of developed space on the property, which includes anything that's basically permanent on the ground. That can be doubled at this particular time to 170,000. It also limits motorized off-road vehicles, so we cannot have an off-road vehicle park or anything like that in the property. Limits them with the exception of service vehicles. We can continue to use those on the property. And then it also imposes some limits on commercial activity. Effectively, anything that would be outside the purview of a normal park activity would be off the table. But things that are consistent with the use of a park would be on the table. It does give us the right to maintain and replace existing structures that are on property as well as existing trails. So we can continue to do that with the property. We can continue to cut and clear trails that are on the property, which is one of the things that will basically come first in the process. And then it also gives the ability to retain hunting and hunting on the property and then put view blinds on the property as well. So those are just a few of the things. As has mentioned previously as well, the current riparian buffer is 100 feet, and our conversations so far have had us extending that riparian buffer from 100 feet to 200 feet surrounding the lakes. And then also, our plan does not involve building an empire. It does not involve building a lot of stuff on the property. So, we're focused on maintaining or limiting that future development on the property to what we need, but not to something real grandiose. But again, going back to that, be a good neighbor, respect the environment, respect the property. We want to continue to focus on that. So to give you a picture, I know it's a little hard here because it's the light lines on here, but the red lines that you see in here is what's termed the common area. And then the black hash mark areas that you see are the wetland buffers. And then there's a riparian buffer, which is another black line, or sorry, the blue line that you see on the property. So that blue line would be the buffer that we would extend to, so from 100 feet to 200 feet. And with, of course, the exceptions of being allowed to be able to put the kayak kiosk within that zone. And then we would put a restroom building just at the edge of that zone. But anything that's within that zone, we can continue to replace within that zone. So uses that are on the property right now that are available, or not, should say not currently available, but that are opportunities for us. So hiking, trail running, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, biking. There's trails that are cut on the property for those. We've already got staff that's going out, taking a look at those trails, making an assessment of what we need to do to clear those trails. And then we're also going to be giving some consideration here real soon to what we need to do to be able to sign those trails. That's actually one of the first things that we would see open, and we'll talk about that phase plan here in just a moment. Disc golf course. We've actually starting to work with Aloft Disc Golf to have them come out, give us an assessment of the disc golf course itself. The baskets are all in excellent shape. The lanes are all cleared with the exception of some downfall. But we know we need to do some work on the disc golf pads on that, so they're going to give us an assessment on that. Waterfront, we all know that there's waterfront on the property, but shore fishing is a great opportunity there, swimming, and then paddling, which had been mentioned just a moment ago in terms of how to get boats there. So we already have canoes on the property, but then the opportunity there is to do paddlecraft rental. And a creative way to be able to do that paddlecraft rental without having to have a staff member sit there from 10 o'clock to 7 o'clock is to be able to use a kayak kiosk. So the one that you see here is a representation of a kiosk from a company called Rent.Fun. And essentially what happens with this kiosk is that you roll up to the kiosk, it gives you instructions on the sign, you punch up an app on your phone, you identify which box or which locker that you'd like to open up, say it's locker number 7, you punch that in, it opens it, or it puts a hold on your credit card, opens it up, you take your boat, your PFD, your paddle, you go paddle, you come back, take a picture that you put it all back in there, close it, and then it charges your card based on the amount of time that you've used. So it's a great opportunity to be able to have watercraft there without having the added expense of having to have a person sit there on the off chance that someone's going to come and take care of that. And they actually maintain and monitor that as well. So if a piece of equipment gets broken, they'll dispatch out and they'll come out and have someone take care of that for us. So it's a great opportunity to be able to put that on property and not have to maintain it specifically. I also started talking with the company about, when the water gets crunchy and it's a little hard to paddle, what opportunities do we have to be able to use this for other purposes? So can we use it for camping gear? Could we use it for winter sports gear? You take the boats out, you put cross-country skis in, and then you could rent those throughout the winter months. So it becomes a 12-month as opposed to a 5-month seasonal operation. So there's certainly opportunities with that. I was kind of surprised. I mentioned that to them. They said, well, we've not investigated that before. It's a good question. I'm like, I think it's an excellent question. So go ahead and figure out how to make it happen, and we'll have the opportunity to rent that further. Speaking of rentals, we've got a lot of rental spaces on property. So group cabins, there are six of those. So you see the picture here. There are also rustic cabins. So there's 6 two-person cabins that are on property that are served by a smaller shower house. Picnic pavilion, lodge, chapel, amphitheater is what I've been calling it, but I know that the unofficial name, all right, is the Fire Bowl. All right, so I should start calling it the name that everybody remembers it by. And then, of course, campsites that are on property. And again, we'll talk about the phased rollout for those. And then programming. The original intent of that property back in 1923 when it was purchased by Clarence Greilich and Rotary, I should say, through the urging of Clarence Greilich, was to dedicate it as a space where youth could go and they could learn about the environment around them. That environmental education and outdoor education is an important piece. The Scouts then took over in 1955, furthered that, continued with environmental education and outdoor education. Rotary, their concept was outdoor recreation and education, and we want to continue that through a network of partners that are already located in the area, and we've already had some conversations with some of those partners who are interested in bringing outdoor recreation and outdoor education programming to the property. And there's already the resources and the infrastructure there to do that. I had mentioned that I had a conversation, or it was mentioned that I had a conversation with the YMCA. We were out there for 2 hours yesterday walking the property. They have an interest in potentially using the property for day camp purposes. They have some partnerships that they've formed with TCAPS, and they have an interest in potentially doing outdoor recreation and outdoor education with TCAPS and bringing classes there, doing day trip programs, and they could use those amenities that you see there. And then there's even more opportunities with that. And we'll talk about some of the other partners here in just a moment. In terms of property management, you had asked a question about a caretaker. My recommendation would be that we have a caretaker on property. There is a home there. There was historically a caretaker on property who'd be able to oversee the property and maintain that property. We are looking at doing that again as well, and potentially having a caretaker on site and trading that for trading the living service or living arrangements there for those caretaker services. We've already talked to a rental management company to form an agreement on maintaining the janitorial work. I don't know how to describe that work, but of the cabins. So if somebody rents the cabins, somebody has to come in afterwards, clean that cabin, make sure that it's ready for the next renter. So there are rental management companies that handle that in the area. They just take a percentage of the total rent. So we're not set up to be able to do all that maintenance, but if we can farm some of that out and get the private sector to help us out with that, then that benefits everybody. There's also opportunities for work trade arrangements. And so we've talked with the Regional Land Conservancy as an example about the possibility of using those 6 cabins and housing seasonal staff there and trading that housing for some work on property. Volunteer support and partner involvement are also key pieces of the entire process. And we've had numerous residents in the area who've come to us and said, I am interested in being on a friends group. I'm interested in being a volunteer and helping out with the property. They're there. We'll just need to form that. And we're not at a point where we can safely get people on property, but once we are at that point, we'll certainly have those folks there. Partners, just as an example. So these are some of the partners that we've had conversations with already about potential uses for the property. Do we have specific dates and very specific activities that they'll be doing? Not at this particular time. We're ahead of that particular piece, but we do have those groups interested in it. And in terms of our project map, so this is kind of the timeline that we see that we would go through. We're right here in the center right now, taking a look at the master planning process and doing some of the initial cleanup. Since we've taken possession of the property on August 27th, we've had staff out there numerous days, again, assessing the property, looking at the electrical, looking at the mechanical, looking at the plumbing, figuring out what needs to be done. They've done some work on those things already. They've done some grounds work as well, and are building an assessment and a plan for doing that work throughout the course of the fall and into the course of the winter to be able to get us up and running. Our phased plan. So we were looking at a phased implementation. So instead of just opening the doors and trying to have everything open all at once, it makes sense for us to look at the things that are easiest to open first and go to those things that have more complications and, quite frankly, involve more infrastructure to open those later. So our initial opening of the park which we're targeting early 2025 to be able to do that, or spring 2025 to be able to do that, would be the simplest ones, which are trail use and disc golf course access. Those are things that it's a matter of clearing, getting the space available. We don't have to deal with buildings and all that other sorts of complicated infrastructure. We can bring porta potties on site for people to be able to use the property from there. From that point, we would move into cabin and paddlecraft rental, which some of that could even happen in 2025 as well. That paddlecraft rental is a matter of bringing in that kiosk, setting it up, and getting going. Contract recreational program would be a third one that we could do with minimal buildings, but we'd probably use Besser Lodge for that. That is already an accessible space. There's restrooms in the space. There's electric in the space. There's plumbing in the space that we can use in the warmer months. So that's a great place for contract recreational programming, as well as some rentals. Lodge rental would be our fourth piece, just because there's a little bit more complications with that particular piece. We need to make sure that the kitchen is in the condition that we would want it to be in, and there's still some discussion as to would we have a prep kitchen or would we continue to maintain the full kitchen that's on property. If a group like the YMCA were interested in doing something that is more complicated than a day camp, for example, a resident camp, which they have kind of hinted that that's a possibility, but again, much bigger animal. If that were the case, we would need to have a full kitchen on site. So we haven't made a full determination on where we go with changing that kitchen over. And then the last piece of that would be tent site and Adirondack use. More complicated there, of just having to figure out how to get people in, get people out, making sure that we've cleared all those tent spaces, that we've created a safe space for all the tents as well as for fires, and then also making sure that we've got restrooms on site. So all the restrooms that are currently on site at all the group camp areas, the 11 group camp areas, are not certifiable. So we'll have to remove those and then replace those with something else. So that is kind of our phased introduction plan for the property. You'd asked about operating expenses earlier. So example of some of the operating expenses here, and I've got an ugly spreadsheet that has all the details on it, that calculates out, for the course of 5 years, and indexes for inflation, indexes wages, and all that, to be able to determine the numbers that we think are appropriate for the particular property. But you see some of the things listed here, and the way that shakes out from a revenue and expense standpoint is, looking at the numbers here, what we're looking at is that revenue drives up over the course of that 5-year period as we continue to add more amenities. So that first year, like I said, we would see potential cabin use, potential watercraft rental, and then as you add more rentals of pavilions and rentals of the cabins and rentals of the lodges, and as those continue to grow, we know we wouldn't see the full rental immediately. We'd see a phased growth of that rental process. So you're seeing that revenue go up, and then of course that expenditure also goes up with that. But as that expenditure goes up and the revenue goes up, our expectation is that the revenue grows faster than the expenditures, which is how you see that number start to mediate in that third year, or start to reach its zenith in the third year and then start to decrease thereafter. In terms of capital needs, we know that we do have capital needs on the property. That paddlecraft kiosk, which we've got I forget the term that you used, but a pledge, thank you. A pledge to be able to help support that paddlecraft kiosk, as well as to buy paddlecraft to be able to put in that kiosk, and then as well to be able to use for education purposes. But the other items that we mentioned here, I won't dwell on each of those individual items, but certainly there are capital needs that we'll have for the property. Some sooner, some later for that. Our first steps, though, would be what you see here. So, and actually environmental due care plan. So we have filed the Phase 1, Phase 2 environmental assessment already. Those were filed in conjunction with the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy. And then just this week, we filed our baseline environmental assessment that we were required to do within 45 days of obtaining the property. And then we're working with Otwell Mobby, who filed that for us to identify a due care plan. The due care plan essentially says, based on the things that you said in that baseline environmental assessment, which were potential environmental concerns, how are we going to mitigate or manage those particular items? Again, I mentioned earlier, we've already started the electrical, plumbing, and inspectical electrical, plumbing, and mechanical inspections for the property. And we've had initial discussions started with Metro Fire to get their read on fire safety for the property. And of course, we'll bring in a qualified company to make sure we get all that stuff taken care of, as well as beginning to work with our environmental health for well and septic inspection, doing the grounds cleanup, and then formalizing a buildings plan. We know we've got 65 some odd structures on the property, some of which will need to be demolished, and we've identified some of those structures, but we need to make sure that we're demolishing something, because once you've demolished it, you can't get it back. So we want to make sure that we're demolishing the right things that are not needed and would potentially be attractive nuisances. And then putting together that really detailed maintenance plan and detailed project plan. We're using a format that we've already used currently for the parks. So for our park properties currently, we have a plan that identifies everything that needs to be done on the parks on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, annual basis, and then also a seasonal basis, splitting it out by specific months. And so we did that for our staff to be able to say, what do I need to do today and on those particular time frames to make sure that we're capturing the regular maintenance needs as well as capturing those preventative maintenance needs. We're working on folding all that stuff into that same operational plan. And then I do have a project plan that details the steps that we've talked about here, and we're continuing to add to that project plan. So for example, scheduling the fire inspection, scheduling the well and septic inspection, and having dates laid out for all of those things, which we've got those dates laid out for many of those already. So. What questions can I answer for you?
Commissioner Andrews?
I am supportive of catalyzing philanthropy. It is valuable. It's long-term valuable. It's across the board. We've got an endowment at Maple Bay. That's a great opportunity to help with long-term operating at Maple Bay. Clearly, the county has an opportunity to help catalyze philanthropy that will benefit Camp Greilich in the long term. At the same time, we have spent $3 million in public dollars to purchase the park. We know we have $500,000 over the next 5 years from now through to 2029, according to the chart, that we will spend in operating. Yep, right there, about $500,000 net cost to operate this park over the next 5 years. We know we have capital needs that will need to be invested in before this park can be fully open to the public. Vault toilets by the waterfront, septic system. I have no idea what costs will be involved in bringing that up to present needs, a new kitchen, demolition of buildings. My supposition is that we will see a request from Parks and Rec for at least $500,000 worth of capital investment in this park in the near term for it to be fully open and operational for the public to get the kids that need to be on this park. And my perspective is that a $500,000 commitment to the endowment at this point is, I think, premature. I would support a 2-to-1 match for the endowment that has already been acquired. So a 2-to-1 on what's already there is $125,000, and a 2-to-1 going forward for another $125,000 should be a good incentive to get the philanthropy community to support us. And if we get a capital estimation on what it's going to cost to get this park open that's less than we think, then we can always revisit that. But we will have spent $3.5 million on a park that's not open to the public, and we don't even have the full extent. We know we've got probably another $1 million in costs between operating and capital coming at this park. So I would like to have a robust discussion about whether we can achieve what the incentive and the catalysm with a 2-to-1 match for the past and a 2-to-1 up to 125 in the near term for the future. That's my thoughts.
Commissioner Nelson.
Mr. Mengebeer, one of the things that we've talked about that hasn't been mentioned yet is the September date for if the $250,000 from Grand Traverse County goes in before the end of the month. Could you explain that?
Yeah, the Community Foundation has a policy that if we received a gift to one of our endowments after the end of the third quarter in any given year, we wouldn't award a grant in the subsequent year. And the reason that we have that policy is if we receive the gift, we invest it, and then we see a market downturn, that presents a risk that we'd have to actually dip into the corpus or principal of the fund if we wanted to award a grant in the subsequent year. So that's been a policy for the Community Foundation for a number of years. So there is sort of a incentive, I would say, to put at least some additional county dollars into the Forever Camp Greilich endowment prior to the end of this quarter if we want to make a significant grant to support operations and maintenance of the property in 2025.
Can I make one comment, too, in response to TJ's comment about capital needs? Because this is a publicly owned property now, you qualify for lots of grants from the state of Michigan. There's the passport grants, Land and Water Conservation Fund grants. There's a grant program in the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund that is separate from acquisition, which has all these strings attached, which is not relevant here anymore. There's a whole grant pot for recreational enhancements, and they've increased that amount to up to $400,000. And we just had the entire trust fund board and staff at Camp Greilich. They were blown away, and I know they would be interested in investing in helping get this park off the ground. So, TJ, I think it's important to keep in mind that this isn't the only fundraising out there, the private fundraising that we're proposing. We're happy to partner with the county to make sure that there's grant funds available that are earmarked for just these sorts of needs from other sources, and we're happy to support John and the Parks and Rec Commission on making those applications not only happen, but get funded.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just add one other thought to this point about expenditures by the county on the park. This request is very different as we see it from other expenditures that the county makes. It doesn't matter what it is. This is really an investment in the future of the park, and it leverages very significant private donations to support ongoing maintenance and operations at the former Camp Greilich. So a lot of times what we see is otherwise the entire burden for operation and maintenance of anything that the county is responsible for falls entirely on the government and the taxpayers. So what we are offering here is an opportunity to actually leverage this contribution to the endowment today to raise a very significant amount of private money to support the annual operating budget and the capital needs of the park.
I can make one other comment regarding the comment that Glenn Chon made, which is the state grants. We've had a successful history with the state grant process as well, and we've actually got 2 grant requests out now, one for the Natural Education Reserve for $400,000 and another one for the Bossa Trailhead Park at $150,000. And both have scored very well, and we would see that opportunity continue in the future.
Commissioner Morris and then Seifert.
Yes, so I normally love to be in the middle of whatever is positive and wonderful and shiny and new. But in the end, I represent District 9, and I'm hearing from my constituents that they do not support us putting additional money into this. And so I can appreciate all of the partners and partnerships and the vision, But in the end, I answer to the people that I'm supposed to represent, so I'm going to have to say no on supporting this. But I'm wishing you all the best of luck.
Commissioner Seifert.
This is kind of a question for Nate. So in this legal agreement that we would have for them, if this is approved, that the money that's generated will go directly and specifically to Camp Grayla, correct?
That is correct.
Could not be spent anywhere else?
That's correct.
Couple of comments real quick. I followed the Regional Land Conservancy since it was formed. I am a huge, huge fan, Mr. Mengenbear. I am not very familiar with your organization, but I'm watching and I'm very hopeful. Just a word of warning, the old tree hugger that I am, every time I hear the word opportunity, the first thing that goes across the screen in my forehead is exploitation. And I think it's refreshing that you think that by putting a kiosk of kayaks there will keep people from bringing their kayaks from other lakes. You will never be able to stop that. But I like the innovation, but not so sure it'll work. So having said that, and I'm willing to take a chance, potentially, Commissioner Jew would take a friendly amendment, meaning that the monies come from the marijuana licensing fees.
I was going to suggest that as well. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was kind of going to leave it up to staff to decide and come back with a recommendation, but I'm fine if we have it use marijuana monies.
Okay, so we have a friendly amendment that will designate these funds from the marijuana revenue, which we have 600-ish, I want to say, more than that?
More than that.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Walter, did you have a comment?
Yeah, this is more about overall parks funding than it is just specifically this. I love to see the level of detail and thought that's been put into this. I've never seen that, honestly, about probably anything else at the county that's facilities related. And I'm hopeful that we can take this level of thought and planning and understanding of maintenance needs and apply it. I know you're serving in both of those roles now, Mr. Chase, because we have underfunded our parks and facilities for probably a generation now, and very concerned that we're kind of putting all our eggs in one basket. I know that's not entirely true, but there's just so much underfunded maintenance needs at all of our parks. And I'd love to see a request for a bigger piece of the pie if we're really putting our money where our mouth is related to supporting parks, related to this coming budget cycle. Because, I mean, already we've talked about how you've had staff out there working on things and we put so much into it and we never budgeted for any of that this year, right? I mean, we weren't budgeting to put staff on a new park. We weren't budgeting to put so much time and resources that you put into it. So this is not a slight of the endowment. I'm in favor of this approach, and I love the private funding potential that comes with it. It's more of criticism of our past choices we've made related to funding parks, and I'm urging you to bring a larger request to us with a plan for what that looks like for parks overall, and not just for this one exciting project that will, of course, benefit people for years to come. But I'm concerned about all our other parks as well.
Sure. And to answer that one, we have been investing in our parks. I mean, when I go to our parks now, I'm proud of our parks. I can see lots of good things happening in each of the parks, and I'd be happy to go through that in more detail with you and show you what we've done in nearly every one of the park properties that we have now. If you look back at the capital history, though, you're right. There has not been a real positive capital history over many years. But I will commend this board and say that 2021, it was 20,000, 25,000, something along those lines. I don't have the number at the top of my head, but a below $50,000 number for 2021 for park investment. 2020 through 2022, went to 60, 70,000, something in that range. 2023 goes up to 200,000 plus, and when you look at all the park projects that we have spent or have committed funds to this year, we're over $600,000. And yes, I'll be asking for additional amounts. And we've talked about that. We've had good discussions regarding capital and what we're looking at for a capital investment perspective in developing our properties throughout the entire county and bettering those properties throughout the entire county, and then what portion of that is to maintain. So we're starting to get a better understanding of the difference between those two and what we really need to put into maintaining all of our facilities, parks, and the rest of our buildings.
Commissioner Andrews?
Thank you. I appreciate that we have a longer window and need more visibility into what our long-term funding is going to be. To that point, I would support moving the match part, the future, the post-September funding into the 2025 budget year, anticipating that you will be fundraising between October and December and into 2025 for this project, such that our investment becomes $250,000 out of the cannabis fund from 2024, and then the future match comes from the 2025 budget as opposed to the 2024 budget to distribute the investment over a 2-year period, technically, even though it might be less than 2 years. I don't know that requires an amendment, but I don't think it would tie the hands of the funders per se, and I don't think it would just distribute the funding over and let us.
The current motion takes this year's marijuana funds to fund this request, so it would be a significant amendment to the motion. And I don't know. There's a friendly amendment available there.
I would like to hear from Dave or Glenn on if that kind of fits with their timeline thought before I decided.
Yeah, so with regard to this initial investment of $250,000 this year prior to September 30th, that in and of itself we see as very catalytic to our fundraising efforts for the remainder of this year. I think the question about where you take the money and whether it's this year or next for the matching portion of this is really a financial question that's up to the commission. But the sooner we have the money in the endowment, the better we're going to be able to earn on it, and that's going to increase the amount of grant we're going to be able to award in 2025. And if we can get the match at the same time this year, that will just continue to help us as we do outreach for private donors. But ultimately, the decision about at what the timing is about where you get the money is really, I think, a financial issue for the commission.
The important thing is the commitment, so that we can.
Yeah, we can't bind the next year's
We have a
board.
pledge here.
But do I understand correctly that the $250,000 match assumes that in the future you will raise additional funds that we will then match? So to the point that we are binding future boards. If they raise nothing, we pay nothing. If they raise 500, then we'll. So it seems to me that either way you look at it, those are future dollars. Those are contingent on actions by others that are being proposed. So
It's just a commitment, like you said.
It's a commitment, right?
Yeah.
So from our perspective, from a board perspective, we are contingency future already. So by spreading it over 2 years, even if it's not 12 months in between the two payments.
Well, if you're going to take the marijuana dollars and say, I'm not going to do it now, but I'm going to do it in 6 months, why wouldn't you just do it now to get the most bang for your buck so you can get the most money raised and get the best grants possible as you write for your grants?
The idea is to incentivize private donors to fund. That's the whole point of it being a match, right?
Which you are.
Well, we're matching what's already been funded with $250, and then the idea is to incentivize philanthropists to give more because they know that then the county will fund it. If we've already put it in, then, good grace, hopefully they would pay, fund it anyway, but presumably the dangle of the carrot of the future county match is the incentive. That was my understanding of the
Right.
concept.
And the other side is that additional match could very well be met before the end of this year anyway.
It might.
You're right.
But
That's the hope.
That'd be our goal.
Yeah. But I do think there's people out there waiting to see how we decide before they decide they're going to contribute too. So I do think it's a spark in the fire that can help energize people to get on board. I mean, maybe sooner than later. But
I appreciate the thought. I'm going to decline a friendly amendment because I just think it overcomplicates what we're trying to do in this moment. But
Don't know when our match is going to be required.
right,
Get
Commissioner
there
Nelson.
first. I mean, is that correct? The initial match is for money that's already been generated or donated, and then it's a 2-to-1 match for the next half a million dollars or whatever. You may not
Correct.
get that by the end of the year, so they're not going to be calling for
Yeah,
it.
it's difficult to predict. We really, been actually pleased about the response so far. And I would say that the Land Conservancy and the Community Foundation have not really in earnest become, really entered into a lot of fundraising. And part of that was, I think, particularly the lake owners waiting to hear what the Parks and Rec Commission was going to decide about outside boats and maybe potential impact of invasives, what was going to happen with the easement. So we have, I think I've mentioned to some of the individual commissioners, we have a donor pyramid. We've identified how we're going to go about raising this money. We have a list of prospective donors that the Land Conservancy has and that the Community Foundation has that we'd reach out to because we understand they're committed to making, being philanthropic in this space of natural areas and parks. So we are really, I think, well positioned to start our fundraising immediately. And I mean, I think it would be an additional incentive if we get the $250 right away and then also have the opportunity to do the matching right away. I think that would really enhance our fundraising.
Commissioner Nelson.
So I think it's very important that this message for the fundraising is clear and concise and not muddled. I'm hoping that Mr. Cobb's article is, or the statement about this is one sentence, not one paragraph. So I think it's critically important, and I'm not, I'm meaning that the message that we put forward is concise. If we muddle it, if we make it more complicated, it's tying the hands of the professionals who are going out to do this fundraising effort. And I don't want to make possible donors who are ready and waiting to go to think, well, but I have to wait to January 1 to do it, so my year-end giving period, I'm just not going to do it. Whether that's true or not, that's the message going to come across. I think the way it's written, with $250,000 today to match what's been given, $250,000 for a 1-to-2 match for all the fundraising as it comes in, that money may not be expended by the county until next year. But I want those funds, those donors, to be able to act right now. I mean, this is, what was the term that Mr. Chown used, a rocket booster?
Turbocharge.
Turbocharge. I'm going to use the term rocket booster that we want to attach to this so it can take off.
Commissioner Jewett.
Well, I think we need to back up a little bit based on what our legal counsel said. We're looking at 12 days here to have some kind of service agreement put in place. Is that feasible?
Yes. We use these agreements routinely, and the Community Foundation is familiar with them as well, to some respect on their own end, but they're very simple agreements.
It's a simple and common mechanism. It's just that if we word it as we're giving a donation, it's illegal. But if we have an agreement in place, it's fine. It's.
I just wanted to make sure that was doable.
It is.
Okay.
So the public has to receive something for their tax dollars. So you can't just give them away. So we will be receiving services, and that's what the agreement's about. All right, are we ready for a roll call vote?
Jewett,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Seifert,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Morris,
No.
McAllister,
Yes.
Henschel,
Yes. Hey, Dave?
Thank you.
This is worth $150.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks, Dave.
This is historic. This is a legacy for the future of this region, particularly for the families and the residents of this county. So I just want, on behalf of the Conservancy, and who is a proud partner with this county for decades, I just want to thank you for your vision and your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you're doing, and
echo the same.
I'll
Thank you
renew
very much for
my
your continued support.
challenge to anyone who has been a camper or a staffer out at Camp Greilich. I just put another 100 in, and it's worth more this time. So come to the table, guys. That's right.
Thank you.
Costing,
Thank you.
Yeah, costing Glenn a lot lately. All right, I think we are at Commissioner and Department reports. Commissioner Jewett.
Just want to let everybody know Garfield Township is conducting second round interviews for manager tomorrow, starting at 2. They have 2 finalists, and sounds like they may be making a decision after that, after the interviews are finished. So,
That's part of my day.
All right, Commissioner Andrews.
Yeah, 2 things. Peninsula Township recently received a grant to support planning for the non-motorized trail, which is very good news for lots of recreational bicyclists and other trail users in our community. And I also was at the city meeting on Monday evening. It's been well reported at this point that Safe Harbor will be proceeding towards applying for a SLUP amendment to go from a winter-only emergency shelter to a year-round emergency overnight shelter. There was a strong community and fairly unanimous request between both commenters and the commissioners and speakers that the county participate in a joint housing task force, given the fact that obviously housing and homelessness are regional concerns. Our neighbors in Acme and Williamsburg, Interlochen and Kingsley, when they become unhoused, they move to the city because that's where there are services. So it's obviously a regional approach, and I would hope that the county would take that up in our October meeting. There may also be attached to that a request for gap funding. I appreciate that our county has been very willing to open its checkbook recently to community organizations, including the Parks Community Foundation and others, so that we will give them a reception when they come back in October and look at how we can open up our county checkbook to support housing our unhoused neighbors in October.
Commissioner Flynn.
On that note also, just want to come back to see, and Nate and I had a discussion the other day of bringing back, I know we wanted to look at the priorities that the opioid task force brought to us, create probably a process of passing out those grants or awarding those grants, but that's something I'd like to prioritize to make sure that either we have the study session that we had mentioned, or special meeting, or on our next agenda as well, of discussing how we do get that money out to the community.
Commissioner Nelson.
So I want to thank my fellow commissioners for the appointment to the Parks and Rec Board. I also want to thank John Chase and the director, or the president, Rod Kivel, who spent a good 2 hours with me, helping me get acclimated to the board, taking me through an introduction. And it was on a Friday afternoon. It was a really nice day, and I'm sure they were both very busy, but it was very informative, and I learned a lot, and it was a very good onboarding process, and I'm excited to be on the board and what we have coming in the future. And I want to remind everybody about Monday the 23rd morning at 9 a.m. out at Acme Township. Come on out to District 6. And if you do come, I'll do my best that maybe you can actually meet the star of Straight from Nate. Get an autograph.
Who wants to follow that? Commissioner Morris, do you have a
All
report?
right, I will do my best. Okay, so at our last meeting, the board indicated that you would like to have a tour of the new mental health facility, of which the name is very long, so I won't say it. And I did arrange with Gabe Snyder for Tuesday, October 1st at 3:30, but I have only heard back from one commissioner. So I'd like to hear back from you guys. I know that Lisa sent that out last week. Again, so Northern Lakes, we were set to vote tomorrow. Our meeting was in Roscommon, set to be voting on the new governance policies. However, the meeting was canceled because we would not have a quorum. And so I just wanted to inform the board that it's going to be another probably month before we look at those. And then again, to remind you that Thursday, October 3rd at 11:45 at the Park Place is Michael's Place Restoring Hope Luncheon. And it is a free luncheon, but bring your checkbooks because it is a fundraiser. And let me know because I have 4 spaces left at the table I'm sponsoring. It is Thursday, October 3rd. 11:45, they want you to be there. It starts promptly at noon.
Okay, Commissioner Seifert?
Yeah, I don't really have anything too much to report, but just let everybody know, seeing that we're talking about fundraisers, that the Traverse Bay Children's Advocacy Center, their Circle of Friends event, which is every year. This year they're having it at the Great Wolf Lodge Conference Center. It's Thursday, October 10th from 11:30 to 1. This is their premier fundraising effort. Come in, there's going to be a presentation from the Honorable Judge Rosemary Aquilina from 30th Circuit Court in Ingham County. She was part of the, Larry Nassar case about sexual abuse. And if you don't know, advocacy center is about helping children dealing with abuse, going after their abusers. So they're sponsor a table or just yourself. I'll see you there.
Any other commission reports? Any department reports?
I have several.
All right.
If I may, first and foremost, I'd like to introduce to you Maxwell Cameron. If I could invite Maxwell up to the podium. Over the last 10 years, Maxwell has served as the executive director at World AIDS Day in Detroit, the executive director at Wayne Main Street in Wayne, Michigan, and most recently has served as the project manager at the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation in Detroit, and he is currently our community development coordinator. So it's taken a while. We had a couple interviews with Maxwell, and we sidelined for the larger part of the cyber incident, but we got there, and Maxwell started with us this past Monday. So he's pretty new to the county, but I would give you the opportunity, Maxwell. This is our board. These are our commissioners, and we truly consider ourselves a team of 16 or whatever we are total, and welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Any questions for Maxwell?
Do you play euchre?
So I do, but I need a refresher every time.
Good to know.
Which is Trump, yeah, exactly.
Well, let's play for money.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be hearing from Maxwell quite a bit. We've already given him quite a list of tasks that we have accumulated over the year, and we're looking forward to it. Maxwell brings some talents to the county that are needed and necessary, and we're really looking forward to kicking it off. So,
Where is his office space at?
it's on the 3rd floor in the former planning office.
Okay.
Oh, it's arguably in the fall, it's the best office in the county because it looks straight down the river with all the leaves changing and whatnot, and it's really a nice look.
Could we get an email with your name and contact information, everything, so that we can have that if we want to refer back to it? And fellow commissioners.
And Elger at Grant. No, yes, yeah.
I'm gonna work on getting your autograph, sir. But I would like to meet him too.
Yes, indeed, we can share that with you. Our concern is that,
Straight from Nate.com.
as we look at, as we know.
You did it to yourself, Nate.
All right, I'll just, yes. I'll concede the point.
Maybe I should have made the request of him
No,
rather
we will
than you.
get that to you. I'm just sensitive to the fact that people are anticipating his arrival, and there is a lot of community members and township officials that are anxious to get going on some things, but certainly we will send that to you today. Thank you. All right.
Welcome to Grand
Please
Traverse
come.
County.
Come to the coffee in the county.
you.
with the
Yep,
county.
he will be there, I hope, Monday.
Good.
We'll introduce Maxwell at the Acme Township Hall on Monday.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maxwell.
Secondly, MAC. MAC is next week. Many of you, if not all of you, are signed up to attend MAC, which is fantastic. Two things that I need assistance with from this board. First, we are supposed to have a study session on September 25th. I had on my calendar an obligation for a trial that has been moved, so I will be at MAC as well. What would you like to see on the 25th would you like to have a study session in the morning, or would you like to forego it?
I'm going to suggest we forego that because the best public good use of that time for these commissioners is to be out there attending the study sessions, meeting other commissioners from other counties, networking. You can't get that value any other place in time. We could do a study session on any other day or week. That's my thought.
I agree.
Same.
I am okay with that, but I am concerned that that puts us in October. We haven't heard funding requests from staff, capital requests, and other things related to the budget. That I assume we will have study sessions at every Wednesday in October. Is that a fair assumption?
It very well could be, yes.
In order to avoid what we've done the last 2 years in terms of budgeting at the very last minute?
And perhaps you could hold an administrative meeting for commissioners or other staff that want to go deeper into those budget items.
So the latest direction from this board was bring forward to this commission the individual departments and elected officials that want staff requests.
Yeah.
We are prepared to do that. Like somebody suggested a moment ago, we can schedule that at any time. I don't know that we would need a full 4 hours for that, but certainly we have things to talk about, and we're prepared to do so. It's unfortunate that this occurred, but it is not often that we host MAC and have the opportunity. We will put our best efforts into making sure we use those study sessions going forward efficiently so that we can get everything taken care of.
Yes, and on Tuesday, the 24th, we are hosting a reception for all commissioners and staff that are attending the MAC conference, so I invite everyone to come to that, 6:30 till up 11 if people keep wanting to talk, and they usually do. You get talking shop and time just flies, but I would ask any commissioners available to come, and I'm actually going to invite our road commissioners as well, and any other public officials that want to talk shop with commissioners from other counties. It's a very eye-opening and enlightening opportunity. So that'll be, we have an airport board meeting at 3 o'clock that day.
Yeah.
And then we're going to...
Yeah.
You said you had a couple items, I'm not sure.
I do, yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Lisa will send out to you the details about the September 24th
Starts at
event.
9 and goes to about 5.
Okay. You got other items?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yesterday, Mr. Forsyth, Mr. Chase, and I had the opportunity to do a visit at the newly under construction senior center. They're moving along, and it looks like they're still looking at the close of this year to take some level of occupancy, and it looks fantastic. It's really remarkable what that location looks like, and it's going to be a good service for our seniors to take occupancy of that facility. Lastly, I had a conversation with Commissioner Seifert this morning. Last Thursday, I received a phone call from the interim village manager in the village of Kingsley. There's been some confusion about the annual appropriation that the Board of Commissioners has given to Kingsley. They thought that was somewhat of a recurring appropriation, and what we have, as you all have heard today, we have agreements in place. Those agreements that are required for us to provide that appropriation, we had it from 2019 through 21, that each year they received $20,000, and then they came to us in 2022 for an extension, and my only thought is they assumed that was a 3-year appropriation. It was not. It was a 1-year appropriation. So due to the change in staff, change of board members, et cetera, I think there was some confusion. The interim village manager, Mr. Hawkins, asked if we would consider making an appropriation for 2024 of $20,000. And what I told him during that discussion was, we have been having a larger discussion about how do we handle these requests. And I encouraged him to make that submission. I have not yet received it, but I did talk to Commissioner Seifert this morning, and just knowing that it's his district, and if he would support it, I told him I would bring it to this board and ask for consideration to appropriate $20,000 to the village of Kingsley for 2024, recognizing that any further appropriation would need to have some criteria attached to it, and that is yet to be set by this commission.
But the mayor of LA is asking us to fund a park.
The mayor of LA, the bailiff at Benzie County, and
Lake
interim
Ann.
manager at Kingsley.
Yep.
And Caitlin, I'm sorry, he has since been, Caitlin is back, and she's back, I think, Monday or Tuesday of this week. So that is my request. If you have any questions, please let me answer them as I may.
Just to clarify, we will see a request for $20,000 for 2024 on an upcoming agenda, and then if Kingsley requests for future years, then we'll see that in the future as well.
I'm actually asking to extend the agreement that we had in 2022, add that for a 2024 appropriation. We would sign the agreement with them for a single year, that being 2024, and then we would have this discussion in 2025 going forward.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Okay, we got a motion by Jewett and support by Andrews.
For the $20,000 for 2024.
Exclusively.
Exclusively.
$20,000?
$20,000.
And what was the
$20,000.
use of the funds was what?
Great, thank you.
Civic Center South.
So
Yeah, that's what I thought, but
it
I
is for
wanna-
Civic Center South. And there, again, there's changes down in the village of Kingsley in terms of their elected and appointed structures of boards and commissions. They have a Civic Center South board. There's confusion about, well, isn't that a county property? Is it not a county property? Why is it called the Civic Center? And I was on the village council when we started this discussion, so I'm familiar with where that came from. But over the years, historically, there were times when Kingsley was lean. We asked the county to take the Civic Center over under their maintenance plan. The county declined that offer. When the county was not lean, they came to the village council and said, "Can we take that property over?" The village declined. So I think it's a property that carries a lot of pride in the south end of the community. It's very well used. It's very well used, and they're starting to see some financial strain. And that's the reason I'm here asking versus having you see it in an agenda item going forward. But it's for Civic Center South for repair and maintenance of the grounds.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to extend that contract to include this year. Is there a further discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Nate.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
To the point about having a process going forward, where will that come from? Is that something staff will bring to us? Is that something the Parks and Rec Commission or department would bring forward? Because it seems like we've been talking about this for 8 months, and
We just haven't taken action on it, Commissioner Andrews, and I get it. Yes, so what we would do is we would, with the, at least the acknowledgement of the board, we will bring to you a recommended process that we can employ that would add criteria to a request. So what would that be? It would be certainly something that the county that's lawfully capable of providing funding for, and then I would take, input from any commissioner about what they would feel additional criteria could be. So we can't take a grant and sell ice cream, or we can't go, those aren't services that the county provides. It has to be something that would be permitted under the law.
Well, I think we should have a deadline time for request.
So one thought that I had was we have 2% applications. 2% applications are taken in the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. It gives entities and groups 2 opportunities to ask for funding versus being locked in annually. So that's just a thought. But yes, I agree, Commissioner Jewett. It has to have an opening period and an ending period. And any commissioner that wants to talk to me about this, we could sit down and hammer some things out.
Form a committee. Anything else?
I thank you for the time.
Those are your department items?
Those are my department items.
Does anyone have anything else for reports?
Got a vote on that?
We just did.
Oh, wait, yeah.
Passed. Yep. We're going to go to second public comment. Would anyone like to address the board at this time? Now is your opportunity to approach the podium. Seeing none. Notices, we've got a joint meeting with the NRAA, that's Cherry Capital Airport, in Grand Traverse County and Leelanau County. This says September 6th, 2024.
October 14th.
It's October 14th.
I think that's the date of the correspondence.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So,
go ahead, Neil.
October 14th at, I believe it was 3 o'clock, we are going to meet in a joint session with the NRAA, the Leelanau County, and our county. And I provided this to you ahead of time so that if you had questions regarding, like, what I have heard questions about, what about our debt capacity? What about our bond rating? We're getting those answers now. We have received input from our financial advisor and our bond counsel. We know what this looks like. Both boards will have to approve the project, but Grand Traverse County is the only board that can back this bond with full faith and credit. So that means something to us. And what that means is that $60 million is going to be included in our overall debt capacity. Good news, bad news is when we had our financial advisor review of this, our debt capacity went from $850 million to 1.1 million. So that's good and bad. We're not ever going to have that amount of debt. But I wanted the board to have the opportunity to ask staff questions about those items before that 14th meeting. I believe it is scheduled as a special meeting, so that in the event that the individual boards wanted to take action, they could. I contemplate that we're going to hear the discussion on the 14th and likely bring it back for a vote of approval, but that's up to you. So that's why the information is in your packet. It is a $60 million ask, and they would certainly like to have the full faith and credit of the county.
Okay. So we will.
Where will that meeting be held at?
At the airport.
Airport, yep.
Make sure that's on our calendars. Is there any other notices to speak of?
No, sir.
All right. And we don't need to close session, so if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.